So. On council procedures bylaw 2511-502, Gerhard, did you want to speak to that, or Josh, or? I see there's several changes in red there, and some things have been stricken off there.
We've, yeah, and Teresa can add some too, but we're back for, we've done first reading already, back for second and third. The only thing that was added was the ordinance standing committee. As per the discussion of the last meeting, and then as was previously changed, just wording for electronic access languages. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, the ordinance standing committee, we kind of agreed that we would
At the last.
just, yeah, we would tie it in with the regular meetings, just get. No trouble and.
Anything else you want to add to that, Gerhard?
That's pretty much it. Thank you.
Okay, so any more comments? We'll look for motion to give second reading to bylaw. Councillor Deacon, all in favor? Carried. And we can move to third and final. Councillor Reese is third and final. All in favor? Carried. Okay, 6.0, 6.11. Item A, policy discussion on county funding waste bins at community halls.
Yeah, asked for this one. What was that? Community league meeting did, but it's been an ongoing issue with the garbage bin. You know, we had a discussion on it before, and it's apparently at that time, policy was that if we are paying for these bins, then the public has access to it. Is that, am I correct in this?
So from an administrative standpoint, we have no policy. There was a motion that was made to fund the Hotchkiss and the Deadwood Halls garbage to a maximum of $2,400 a year. It was in 2009, so I don't know what the context was. I would assume it's to permit use. I know that there are other halls that have locks on them and we can contribute to that.
Yes, and there was that's kind of part of it. They were wanting to lock it, prevent people from dumping there. At that time, they were under the understanding that because the county was paying for it, public had to have access to it. Like you guys call this discussion?
No, but that makes sense.
But anyway, it's been a source of problems because people, it's always full. And so would there be an issue then if they were to put a lock on it and say it's just for the hall?
I would say you'd probably want to rescind these other motions and stop paying $200 a year for it. The other place that funding could be provided, it's not explicitly mentioned, but in the hall funding policy, we include basically every utility the hall has. So probably we're funding at 50%. Some of the other halls that have waste disposal like that, it would be essentially a utility.
So I think like the Hotchkiss one, I'm familiar with it. And if it was only there for the hall, you know, probably wouldn't make sense because there's such few functions at the hall. I mean, you have a bin sitting there locked and will get used half a dozen times a year. And I think it's respected there. There's times you can tell when spring cleaning or summer cleaning, it gets quite full, but never on the ground. I've gone there when it's been heaped, just take my garbage back home again and wait until it's emptied, right? Because it's emptied it once a week. So I know people really appreciate that service there, you know, whether it's funded directly like this or funded through the hall funding. Through the hall funding, I don't know what.
Just 50%.
Yeah, but 50%, I'll let them, I don't know what that would be, or what they charge, what county disposal charges, so. It'd probably be a bit of a burden on the community club then to pay their 50% of it.
There, I know that, I have to look at the bills, but I know that $2,400 even on this is not covering the full extent of what they're paying.
So is
So Deadwood were like $2,100 for the year. Maybe $700, $2,900.
yeah, is the, so has Deadwood, been one of the halls that applies for the grant?
Every hall in our municipality applies every year now.
And so are we paying for their garbage separate? Or-
Anybody, so Hotchkiss and Deadwood, because they have this motion, we make sure that it's not included in their other
Oh,
financials.
okay,
Back.
it's not double.
Yeah.
If it is locked after this long, are we gonna end up with a pile right beside, or, you know, like, is that a problem?
Well, I suppose potentially at first could be, but you know, the issue is that it's being. Basically, it's an unregulated, transfer station, is what it is, right, and it wasn't a problem originally, and over the time, it's become more so. And there's times when it's full, and people will put things beside it, you know, set a camera, but it's been an ongoing issue.
That's unfortunate, people would abuse it like that. I mean, like I said, Hotchkiss, I find the opposite, that people really appreciate it. Now, what they're putting in there, I have no idea. Wherever I go, there's always garbage bags and some cardboard boxes. I don't see cans of paint or metal or anything.
Yeah, and I'm not saying there is, but it's just that it is,
Yeah.
you know, that it's a potential concern. And I'm sure people do appreciate it, you know, that. You know, drive where they go, but
Mhm.
same time, it's kind of seems like it's getting under control.
And then the other thing they did at Hotchkiss, and I don't know if it makes any difference, but they put a put and take shelf there, so people bring their garbage and there's some perfectly good dishes I was gonna throw away, drop it in there, and people take them, right? So, I mean, some of it is garbage, and it ends up there eventually, it sits there for length of time and ends up in the dumpster, but it's kind of repurpose things, and so I know that people in my community would not be happy if we took this service away from them, or if we locked it, or.
But I don't think it's our, or sorry, your guys' decision to do that. Those are controlled by the halls themselves, right? And it's outside of our policy or our control. We're just compensating them for it, so that's to people.
So again, the question is, if the community decided to lock that,
Yes,
it is,
that's up to them.
so that's their decision.
Yeah, I would
Okay,
say so.
that's kind of what I'm, because we had discussion, and as I recall, if it was being paid for by public funds, they were not. You had to have access, that's my recollection.
This is before my time. This motion was made.
Yeah, but
Like I said,
we did have a policy discussion after that, at some point, and that's what I recall.
It might have been in conjunction with the agriculture policy, but it's still not explicitly in there. It's just, I would include it as a utility. You live in town, it's included on your utility bill for waste disposal. It gets. Another one. The only comment I would say is if they're looking to lock it, I would probably remove the funding through this motion and just do it through the all funding policy.
Mhm.
They'll still get compensated to some respect, but it will be less. And, on the basis, I guess, of your people don't have as much access to it.
So I'll bring their next meeting and they can decide what they want to do. And then, another thing that was brought up is that they were talked about potentially putting a sign there to let people know when the transfer station hours are. And they were asking if Public Works would potentially provide us a sign of the hours of that. Or is that?
That's some long lake thing.
This would be the commission then.
Yeah. Well, yeah, normally is the. So.
And
But
just-
I would think that would be all decision.
What's the purpose of that, just to make awareness that.
Yeah, awareness of where the
But
when the transfer stations are open.
I could bring it to the meeting. The next meeting isn't until May.
Is there a transfer station in Deadwood or? is one of
Yeah,
those-
there's one in Rhinewood and then one in Sunny Valley.
Right.
Must be just handy for some people.
What's that?
It must be just handy for some people that live.
Well,
there.
yeah, it's sure it's central for a lot of people, so it is convenient, but. Been a source of, problems for the years. Seems like it's getting worse instead of better.
Hmm.
Okay, well, that's helpful then. I'll bring that back to them. They can decide what you want to do.
Yeah, just make sure we know, I guess. I haven't paid them yet this year, I'm waiting on a revised invoice, so.
So you're waiting on an invoice from them.
From Deadwood, yeah. First one was for too much money because it's maxed out at 2,400. So I was supposed to get a revised one.
Okay, they didn't. Probably more because the frequency of. I think of it.
I know we, just personally, we have a pretty big bin on our farm and it's $100 a month just for the rent. And then when you get it dumped, it's like another 40, 50 bucks.
That's once a month.
No, we don't get it dumped, maybe every 2 months.
No, but you say they come once a week.
Oh, but yeah,
Yeah, so in
it could
Hotchkiss,
be really
They
high.
come every Monday morning in the Hotchkiss, right? So,
That would be quite high.
so
Yeah,
could
I think your bill there is like 300 bucks a month almost.
at least some,
Yeah. Something like that.
sometimes like by 12, or over 3,000 bucks a then. Okay, well, we have a draft motion before you. If somebody wants to make that,
Yeah, I'll, make that work.
okay, all in favor? It's carried. Item B, the Impact Assessment Agency of Canada. Public information session, so if everybody received this email, I think. And so they have a 30-day comment period after this IPD has been submitted. And they're gonna have a couple of webinars open to the public, so one is tomorrow already. And after, and the day after that, one in French. So if anybody has taken the time to read this, kind of the executive summary of the impact of the IPD, I should say. And then from this IAC, they are looking for input, I mean, comments, whatever, Senate comments, I guess they call it. So I think that the municipalities are kind of included in the public portion of it, like they have a indigenous one, they have, I'm not sure what all streams they have for comments on, but definitely the public one is the biggest one. And that would lump the municipalities in there too, so I don't know if we want to collectively make a comment. And we can wait and do that at next meeting, give some time to think about it, and maybe find a template that other municipalities have used. And I'm thinking in Ontario, because they've been through this before, and just kind of something to model off. Or, I mean, we can. Yeah, I mean,
I actually went on the website and there are some comments already. So they're pretty informal.
yeah, they are, and that's kind of what I learned from talking to this guy from Impact Assessment. He said, you don't have to have a 20-page section with an appendix and table of contents and everything. You can be whatever you want, right? So, but I guess, so I think that Teresa, you put this on our website, on our social media, about these webinars coming up, so try to get the word out.
We've got hard copies of Blackman way as well.
Of the,
If
of the
anybody are of the,
IPD.
sort of IPD,
With the
summary of it.
Or just a summary, yeah. It's a 200-page document, otherwise it's a lot of paper.
How many copies would they send? 2 English, 2 French, or 2 English, 2 French?
You said, how many?
2 English, 2 French. So we asked them to sit and read it here. We only have 2. I don't know if there's too many people that will read the French
Right.
one. No.
And have you had much interest?
I haven't noticed, but
We just
We've
got
also- yeah, we've been gone.
Oh,
But there is a
it's
link.
just last.
Yeah, the link was advertised, so we're not tracking how many people click it by any means.
So, let's put some thoughts into it, and maybe we'll prepare I mean, we can comment individually as a resident, but I think we should collectively comment as a municipality as well, so. And I'll check, or yes, Josh acting for Gerhard can just check with the other CEOs that are members of the CREC and just see what they're kind of doing and. So I,
And so should we just submit some comments to you or? And then the administration can put it together and.
well, I think send it to administration
Oh.
and then we can, administration can kind of summarize it for us for next meeting. So you said that to Gerhard, you're getting his mail in his absence or?
No.
So
So
send,
as an auto reply.
yeah, I'll send it to you then as acting. Or to Teresa.
Yeah, keep him CC'd on it, just so he can see it, I guess.
Well, to me, it looks like it's geared for more individual participation, just to give the public patient voice, I guess.
But I was told that municipalities are definitely open to commenting as well. So, and of course, indigenous groups or a Chamber of Commerce or an Economic Development Committee. All these people can submit comments on behalf of the organization, so. Yeah, it's wide open. They're not restricting anybody that wants to comment, so. So I'll make a motion that we know our seat and I guess have council or recommend council to one of the webinars. Any other comments, discussion? Ms. Linda's seen it or not? She's probably busy anyway. Okay, all in favor? It's carried. I did.
And if we want, we can go on there and.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Well,
Yeah. Okay, item C, public engagement regarding nuclear power issue. Branch, you have it listed in the agenda?
Yeah, I've been hearing from people, at the trade fair. So, commenting that they would like to see public engagement on it. This has been out for about a year now, since this proposal, and people, well, a lot of people feel that it's kind of they're not being consulted, feeling that they're kind of being rolled over by this. They would like to have information sessions with council. And I think it's a good idea. The Energy Committee's been meeting with industry people regularly every month, but we've not had any public outreach on this whatsoever. And I think it would be helpful to do so. Give people sense that they're being listened to. And their concerns are being heard.
So people at the trade show approach you, like how many people do you think approach you? I worked the booth from 6 till 9. And nobody come and spun the wheel and asked a few other questions about water registry, but
Well, I think the people that came specifically talked to me, there was 3 of them, and they were all wanting this. Not just there, heard it other places as well. So, mean, why would we not have public engagement in this? You know, as it is, people think that there's this perception out there that this decision is being made already by this council, and they're not being included in this decision making. That's perception amongst the public out there. Why would we not? You've already participated in a public forum in Edmonton. That was a public outreach event, right? On SMRs.
I did, I was asked to sit on that public.
So why would we not have this in our own community where the project is proposed?
So. Again, that's perception that the council, our county, our municipality, this is not our project, we're not proposing the project, we're not funding the project, we're not even.
You're advocating for the project, though.
We made a motion last fall to support.
And through the energy committee, you're actively advocating for this project. Am I incorrect in this?
I don't know what, define what you mean by advocating,
Well, what is the purpose of the energy committee?
is to promote economic development. I mean,
And-
this project is coming, right?
This project in particular, right?
This project, right?
In particular, you're promoting, advocating for this.
Yeah, it's the only one before us right now, right?
Okay, so you're advocating on behalf of the industry, and yet you seem hesitant to actually have public engagement with the people that you represent.
Well, I'm not advocating on behalf of the industry, I'm advocating on behalf of the project. And whether it's Energy Alberta or Capital Power or CNRL, whoever wants to bring a project to our municipality.
Well, this project is particularly Energy Alberta, and they attend every one of your sessions, your energy committee sessions. So again, what you're meeting with the industry every single month, and yet I hear reluctance to meet with people that we actually represent here. The public is, we work for the public, we don't work for this industry or this company.
Well, neither is our committee. I mean, they ask if they're going to attend and they just give us an update on the project and that's it. I mean, the committee is not there for them. It is there to promote this economic development in our region. So I mean, the public, if they want to, they can have a chance to know with the IAC, they can attend these webinars, get information, they can contact Energy Alberta directly, they're open, they're not hiding behind anything, they said that anybody can call them, they got a website with info email on it, or call somebody directly. So that's where they need to go for information. I don't know if anybody at the trade show had anybody come to them.
I did have, there were a couple, I guess, I found out they were from North Star. Came up to me and was asking about it, and they were all in favor, but I haven't heard any comments.
Well, it's irrelevant whether they're in favor or not in favor.
Well,
the-
that is
The
relevant.
the reality is that we represent everybody. And this is a significant project. This has the potential to change the nature of our community. And people feel that they need a voice, and I think that's reasonable to be heard on this issue. And again, there's a perception among the public that this decision is being made for them. They're not being given an opportunity to be heard or a voice from this council.
They have
And
every
again-
opportunity, they can call us anytime.
So am I hearing that this council is not in favor of engaging with the public on this issue?
Oh, I think they're all the time.
Terry, can I?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Lynn.
I'm just trying to figure out. So Brent, you're saying that people think we're not letting them know what's going on? Because,
They want to engage with council on this issue. They want their.
Yeah, but-
concerns-
our council, there's it's a 6 committee that's working together to try to get economy growth here of some kind. And it doesn't just relate to the nuclear. That's how I'm understanding it. And if they have any questions, come to the meeting and ask. They have a right, they can do that. We've never stopped anybody from coming to the council meeting.
But don't you see the problem here? Perception is that this council and this energy committee is working for the industry.
No, we're not.
every single month with the industry people, and yet we've not had a single public engagement meeting with the people that we represent. Been
Okay, well
years.
then,
Would you like, Energy Alberta to come to one of our?
No, I
council
would like
meetings,
us to
Anderson?
engage
And you
the
can
public
hear
on
what
this
they have to
issue,
say.
and we can share what's been going on at the energy committee meetings and everything else that you've learned on your trip to Ontario and Edmonton. All these things you should be sharing with the public in a public forum. Again,
I understand that we're sharing it at our meeting, so it's public knowledge. Is it not? I don't know, like,
I just think now is not the time. So preliminary right now, like no decisions have been made.
well,
Other
well,
than-
we're not, well, I hope
yeah,
we're not
why-
making,
why would we give this, why would we meet every month, the energy committee meeting with the industry, and yet we're not willing to meet with our own residents on this issue and share information?
Well, because it's their, not our project.
Well, it's their project. Why is the energy committee then, we're committing resources to this project. And I'm hearing a reluctance to engage with the public. I don't
Well,
understand.
it's not right now. I don't think now is a good, it's just everything is so preliminary. They just started their study.
Well,
Like we
there's
don't, no decisions have been made on even whether they're gonna build it here.
well, the
And
reality is that the people here,
Are you not in favor of economic development?
I'm in favor of doing what the people here are in favor of. That's what I'm in favor of. It's not up to any one of us.
No, that's
This
true,
goes or
but-
doesn't go. It's up to the people that live here.
Everyone
That's
I
who
talk
should be
to,
deciding this, not the energy committee.
anyone I've ever talked to in public is very excited about it.
We're not-
I'm looking forward
This is
to
not,
jobs.
this is not a debate about the project. This is a debate
What is it
about
about?
public engagement,
And so
okay?
what do you want us to talk about at this public engagement? Like, what is it that you want us to tell the people?
We want to share information with the people and listen to their concerns.
well, then have them come to a meeting. That's the best way.
Yeah, I mean, they can come for open mic at the end of the meeting, unless they come as a delegation, but. Yeah, so I mean, here are their concerns, but are their concerns, what are the concerns with the municipality? I mean, all we're doing is we're supporting economic development. And if it's gonna be a nuclear plant, then we wanna be prepared to be a host municipality, whatever that form that might take. So I think at this stage, we don't want to just have somebody come and try accuse council of doing something that we're not. I mean, we're this landed in our laps. We never went out and found this, and we're only supporting it from the economic development side. We know that it's gonna have a huge impact. You know, people want services in the region. And they need to understand where the funds for those level of service comes from, right? And we have a forest industry that's kind of keeping us afloat, but look what happened in Heinz Creek on the weekend. They lost their main source of revenue. I mean, that could happen anywhere, right? When you're a one industry municipality, you're subject to, economic market.
Can I stop you?
Yeah.
We're not debating whether this should go ahead or not go ahead. We're debating, let me repeat, we're debating whether to have public meetings with our residents on this issue. So they can be heard on their concerns, okay? That's what we're debating, not the project,
Okay.
not nuclear, not anything else. We're debating that particular issue.
Yeah, I'm totally in favor of that, but not at this point.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brenda. I think, obviously, we're not hiding behind anything, and there'll become a time. I think if they have questions now, they can contact the Impact Assessment Agency, they can contact Energy Alberta with their concerns, but I don't think the municipality has a place in this at this time. It'll come once the impact assessment is done in 6 months' time, however long that takes. And then there's obviously gonna be more open houses held by the regulatory bodies and by the proponent both.
Maybe, Terry, the best thing for us to do is have this a meeting just to let them know exactly what we as a council have been doing. And if they have any questions, then they'll have to go to the government over it because we're not making a decision. It's not our decision to make.
Well, you've already made this decision.
How? We haven't made any decision.
You passed a motion to accept this, this project.
To be a group, of 6 people, 6 communities working together on economic development. That's all we've done, and it's not just,
And again, we're not debating, whether this should go ahead or not go ahead. We're debating whether we should have public engagement at this time with the public, being that it's been out there for a year now, and there's rumors and all sorts of things going on. That this is the done deal, yada, yada, council made this decision.
so they can come to the council and ask us to.
I think we can address the public maybe in the paper and just give them a fact sheet on what's been going on, because we. have
There you
not.
go. Yeah.
That'd be one way to do it, or maybe if, maybe the energy committee could have an open house at some point.
So again, this seems to be a contradiction here. So you've made a decision to engage in a public forum in Edmonton, right, over the SMR. You can engage publicly there, with the public in Edmonton, right?
Well,
Do a panel,
yeah, I was.
with the energy committee.
I was asked to sit on it, and it was a very non-participant panel. There was a handful of people showed up, and I just.
So why then would you meet in Edmonton, have a public engagement in Edmonton, and yet you're reluctant to do it here with our own residents?
I was representing the energy committee in Edmonton, so if the energy committee would like to have an open house, I can bring that forward to them and see if they want to engage in that.
You're not elected with the energy committee, you're elected by the residents here, and I'm hearing that the residents would like public engagement to hear their concern from the council to defend the motion that was made to accept the project. And again, this is not say we should or shouldn't do it, it's question is, do we have public engagement to defend this decision? And just hear people's concerns, people rightly heard on the issue.
What motion are you, I'd like to be informed. Which motion are you talking about, Brent?
Would like to make a motion to have over the next month or two, 1 or 2 meetings at least, I would say 2 meetings in our, maybe at each end of our municipality, and just hear people's concerns and share and clear up possibly some misinformation that's out there.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. You guys can make sense. At least this way, guys, they're not saying we're trying to hide anything from them. Like that's what it sounds like, that they're telling Brent that we're hiding and but we're not.
Gonna turn into
Don't
a
put words in my
council
mouth here.
action
No.
meeting or what?
This is, we need to know, because we can't do.
So this is gonna turn into a council matching evening or what? Like,
How do I know what it's gonna turn into?
well, who were the people you were talking to? Were they part of your?
Yeah, pick members,
Protest group?
residents here. I guess if you don't have these meetings, it's gonna make it worse. If we do have them, yes, there'll be concerns. There may be accusations, I don't know.
We're saying we have to defend our motion, right? So.
Yeah, well, it's just to share information and let people know what's going on, okay, as it is.
So what were their concerns that they brought to you?
That the concern is that this decision is being made, without any input.
What decision?
But
Yeah, sorry, just because I see a lot of this too, because Trent and I watched the Facebook page. And from conversations I've had and speak here, if he said anything else, but what's been brought to me, I think I can agree that nobody is clear on where this project or where anything related to nuclear is at. You can talk to 5 people outside this building and get 5 different opinions, 5 different stories. They will all extrapolate support related specifically to a nuclear development in our municipality and be for or against. But that is not, I don't believe, where we are at, or even remotely close to where we are at in discussions. The point being, I don't think your people understand that. Comments we get on Facebook, anytime we post any information, for example, this one, We just put out the, go to this, get the information, provide your input on the survey. We have 3 comments, all demanding we hold a referendum to see if we want a nuclear project in our municipality. Not even where we're at in the conversation, but again, it's kind of hitting the point that I don't think the residents understand what your role is right now, or what you guys are actually doing by participating even in the committee. So depending on how you frame an open house or public engagement, like, sure, it could go bad if it was phrased that way, but if we're just communicating where we're at as a municipality and what we are actually doing at this point, it could actually just settle things down for a little bit. And that's what I see through Facebook and through conversations that I've had.
So I just want to share an email that Caitlin, she read the agenda, but she unfortunately couldn't be here. So as previously discussed with council, I want to once again apologize for being unable to attend the meeting on today. I did, however, want to request that my comments below in respect to item 6.1.1C be shared with council. I was in a county booth in Manning Trade Show on Saturday from noon till 2. The booth was very quiet, with many people just stopping by for a chance to win prizes and spin the wheel. Mrs. Tucker did have a few people stop in to check on the status of their voter registration. I didn't have any conversations, questions, or comments regarding nuclear power. The only complaint I took was in regards to the possibility of the county helping fix up an approach for a school bus route, which I shared Charles's card and asked them to reach out to Public Works, as that wasn't my jurisdiction to speak to. As members of the Energy Committee established by council motion, I believe it is imperative that we find a unified path forward on the matter of nuclear and energy Alberta. While healthy debate and diverse perspectives are vital to our democratic process, once a motion is approved by the council, we have a collective responsibility to support its intent. I think it is important to reiterate that this is Energy Alberta's proposal, and as such, our role at this stage is one of maintaining an arm's length relationship. Therefore, the primary responsibility for public engagement currently rests with Energy Alberta. To date, the feedback I've received from my ratepayers has generally been positive regarding potential development, with the primary concerns relating to the clarity of Energy Alberta's mapping at the open house, which I shared with them directly, as did many others, and potential traffic impacts with an influx of workers. While I strongly believe in the importance of communicating with our ratepayers and understanding their perspectives, I feel that direct engagement by council at this juncture may be premature. Energy Alberta is currently undertaking engagement sessions as outlined in Katie McKinnon's email on April 14th, providing a direct avenue for public feedback to the project components. Given our expertise and the detailed regulatory processes in place, I believe it is their best route to allow these processes to unfold without direct council intervention at this stage. Our focus should be on supporting the overarching council motion, while respecting the distinct roles and responsibilities of all parties involved. Thanks. Appreciate you sharing this on my behalf. So again, I believe there will be a time for public engagement, and based on Josh's comments, is that time now? I don't know if it should be.
Well, I would say that the time is now. The council has made a decision on this. As support this proposal. Through the Energy Committee, if there's regular meetings with industry once a month, I feel it be totally appropriate to meet the public and to hear their concerns, and if there are any misconceptions or misinformation there may be out there. To say that to endorse the project and then say that we have no, this is not our decision, and then to be actively out there supporting, advocating for it, it's kind of a mixed message, I would say. And so
We're open to any project. This just happens to be what's here right now.
And so again, this decision's been made, so then we should be willing to defend and engage the public on this and explain the position of the council. I seem totally reasonable, given that the activities of the The energy committee has been pretty constant every month, they're meeting there, so.
Well, my position on council is that we want economic development and I would support anything that's, if it's possible.
And again, we're not debating that, we're
So-
debating whether to have public meetings, to engage with the public. Again, we're not debating the merits of nuclear power or anything else, only the merits of meeting with our residents to explain what is going on and what's happened to this point, to this point.
So again, I say again, I don't disagree that the municipality at some point, but I think that this IAC 30-day comment period is out. I would like to see that close first and see the comments that come out of there. And maybe plan an open house later this summer or later this spring. May, June sometime, but I don't see any.
Well, then we should plan it today then, if we're gonna have an open house.
Well, like I said, I'd like to see the IAC comment webinars first, and then their comments conclude, close. I mean, it's not the end of it. They said this 30-day is, it's not a,
That'll be over by the time we have this session. So that part will be included, probably by the time we have a public open house.
yeah, so let's not set a date until after that's closed, and we can kind of see what comes out of that. And then kind of base kind of plan around that. I don't know.
Well, I see that we should engage the public irrelevant to what comes out of this other process.
Yeah, I said I agree with that, but we will have to, and I don't know if it should be, because all the members of the energy committee made very similar motions, so I don't know if the energy committee should be part of the,
That's part of the open house.
yeah,
Well,
because it's a regional project, right?
well, it's the members, people I talk to, residents, they want to meet with the council.
I hear that.
Their representatives, okay, that's who they want to engage with. Didn't hear anyone requesting the energy committee have these, it was particularly council, and it's to hear what's going on, and more importantly, to have their concern heard by the council. Again, there's a perception out there, not by everyone, but a certain percentage of the public that they're not being heard. They're just being rolled over by this, and you're not having a voice. That's the concern that I've been hearing.
No,
Well, if they haven't told us, how are we gonna hear them? Aren't they the only?
If we don't meet with them, I guess, then, yeah, how do we hear them?
it's just really odd that we were at the trade show and nobody came forward with those concerns. If they're engaging with you, but not with anybody else, or.
Well, I have no control over that, but no, this is what I'm hearing, okay. So I would move that we look to have public engagement on this issue within the next 2 months, 4 dates.
Just from an administrative standpoint, Brent, do you want like an open house or, because public engagement can be that, it can be a survey
Well,
online.
and again, that's
I'm
kind of
assuming you
open to debate here at Let's Farm, but basically us, I guess similar to a ratepayer meeting, we share the information we have on the project, and then we open it up for questions and input from the public.
But like it could also be like used, and it could be a survey or something put in
Maybe in tax notice.
with the tax notices haven't gone out yet, I guess, yeah. That would be a good way. You'd probably reach a lot more people that way.
It just depends on what you want to communicate and what you're looking for.
So I
So
think,
it's-
I
well-
think get information.
But what is-
Is what the energy committee's been doing, where the project is at. What you've learned from the energy panel in Edmonton, the Ontario event. All these things, just let people know what's going on and hear their concerns. It's not nothing complicated, just to tell them what's going on and hear their concerns.
I think we could do that just by putting it in the newspaper, those 4 questions you asked.
Well, or Gloria suggested even, we could do the newspaper, social media for sure, but we could also, put a, I don't know if you want to call it information thing or a survey or in with the tax notices, or are we going out here shortly? An update, you know?
Well, that's transmitting information, that's not receiving concerns. People want to be heard, they want their concerns to be heard directly. Not through, no one said to me that they want to be noticing their taxes. So let me ask this, who then decides if this project goes forward in our community? Who decides it?
Well, I would say that's being decided now with IAC is the first step. CNSC, the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission. And then from there, probably the Canada, probably
So the federal government decides if it goes here?
well, they'll decide if there's a construction license can be issued or not. I mean, it's gonna be a 3-year process, I think, but
So then does the public, the residents here, do they have a say in what development occurs in this municipality?
so like if there's a pulp mill built or a sawmill built or a gas plant or a pipeline
Or a nuclear plant?
or a nuclear plant, does the public have a say in that? I don't know.
Technically, yes, for all of those.
So,
And
so when there's a development, say even a subdivision, there's a public engagement portion of that, right? So if you have an issue with it, you can, it's advertised and public can put in their concerns towards that.
and it's directly circulated to anybody adjacent.
Correct. Yeah. So buried somewhere in the federal government's policies, any nuclear related development must be situated in a willing host community. It must be a willing host community. In fact, there was just there was a referendum in Ontario and a couple of communities over putting a waste site there. So the federal government has recognized that the community must be a willing host community. Okay, so then what, how do we determine then if this is a willing host community? Does the council decide if this is a willing host community, or do the residents here decide if this is a willing host community?
So I think this comment period is the first step in that, where people have an opportunity to comment. And to gauge the willingness of those comments as part of it. When you're looking at water, it's a 200-page document, right, that talks about water, about environment, about indigenous, about all sorts of things, but the public acceptance is also part of it. It's not up to a council, I don't think, to decide if it's I don't think 7 people here can decide if this is a project. The 40 billion potential project is, you know, it's not up to us to decide if we're willing or not. I think that's
So then, is this the question, then my question is this the question for the residents? Do the residents here decide whether this development goes ahead?
So residents within our county or within the region, because I think the town of Peace River probably has the most at stake of anybody. It's gonna impact their municipality. The residents of ND of Peace, residents of Grimshaw, they all have to be willing hosts. It's not just our county.
Well, being that this is a municipality where it's being hosted.
They don't think it lies just with us, I think it lies within the region.
Well, if you look at what's happening, for example, the waste sites in Ontario, it's the municipality where it's situated is where the referendums occurred.
After 10 years of like this has culminated in 10 years of research, and they did all the studies, just like what's happening now. Just before, like when it was approved or whatever, the facility, then they went to the public and voted. After 10 years of research and development,
And the Indigenous had to be part
they
of
have to
that.
have all their consultations done and everything before. And then at that point, the municipalities voted.
And I don't
So at what point should this come to a referendum here then?
Well, at some point after we see a development permit, maybe.
I don't think you'll see a development.
Or,
I don't know if it looks like it.
You won't, you don't see a development permit for a pipeline.
No,
It's-
yes, that's true.
This is handled by a different.
So it's not even, oh,
So McGinnis, Township McGinnis with the deep geological repositories proposed now. I don't know if they had any other, I mean, they're a fairly remote rural municipality or township, they call it, I guess. There wasn't a bunch of other, like in our situation where this is gonna be built in our municipality, I don't disagree, but it's, it's gonna have an impact on other municipalities that are right in the shadow of it. Where I think in Guinness, that they were kind of, maybe that's why they chose that site. Well, I mean, obviously they have the right geology there to do it. But they also have the not very many communities. Basically, it was the township and the Indigenous are the only people that are really involved in it. So I mean, it's maybe not a real fair comparison to what's proposed here.
and I think there were two choices at the time, two possible locations.
2 or 3 maybe even,
And then it was brought to the vote. I guess.
So if the majority of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
residents, so if the majority of residents within this municipality was, referendum was opposed, then would the council support that?
support what
Support withdrawal, if a majority of residents were opposed to this, would council support that?
kind of an abstract question.
Or, well, it's not an abstract question, I mean, at some point, probably, there will be a request for a referendum. Just like there was in Ontario for the waste, because the nuclear project is unlike any other project in that it's controversial, it's always controversial, and that's why federal government has stated that must be a willing host community, like with the waste dump. Waste repository. So then, who defines what is a willing host community? That's the question.
Yeah, and I think that's the federal regulators between IAC and CNFC, and those are the people that will approve the license, right, for construction, for all licenses that will be required. So,
If it's established as a willing host community.
yes,
Okay, so then how do we determine if it is a willing host community?
that's.
You're gonna let the federal government decide if it's a willing host community?
I would think that's their job, I think, yeah, not our job.
Well, federal government doesn't have authority to have put a referendum here in this municipality. That would be our job.
If that's a requirement. I don't know if that's a requirement of their licensing,
It's a requirement to establish that it's a willing host community,
right?
and that's our job then to determine. Not the federal government, I would suggest.
Well, I would suggest I don't know that answer. Who makes that decision? This isn't something new to them. I mean, they've issued these licenses before, so they must have a process, and whether referendum is part of that process. That would be a question they would have to answer.
So at this point, I have a motion here, I would like to have, public engagement sometime in the next few months.
In the form of a public meeting.
In the form of a public meeting.
I just I'm just not comfortable with a public meeting at this point. I think that that's getting a bit ahead of herself. I mean, I'd definitely be in favor of putting out information.
I just see that, again.
I-
that
We're putting out the facts that where we're at right now.
What's wrong with meeting with our residents to explain what's going on?
Well,
And hear
there's
their
not a lot
concerns.
to tell.
As long as we're not gonna get bombarded, Brent, that's the main thing.
We know what's gonna happen there. I don't know.
At the open house,
What's that?
what happened at the open house in Weatherville? Is that what's gonna happen here?
Like what? What happened there?
Well,
Focus group outside.
And what was wrong with that? What's wrong with protest?
Nothing wrong with that, but
That's what,
once it comes to us, it's gonna be a problem.
What? People don't have a right to object or protest?
Well, if we have an open house, then that's their opportunity to speak to us directly.
Exactly. And they have a right to say whether they disagree or agree.
Well, of course they do. But
So why would we be
saying
concerned about
it's-
protests? There were people expressing dissatisfaction. That's their job to listen to that. I would say so. We're supposed to reflect what the public is wanting. That's their job.
Maybe it's just the way it was presented.
so why don't they come to a meeting and as a delegate, if that's what they wanna do? Like, we're not
They may
trying
do
to
that.
hide
I
a
don't
damn
know.
thing from them.
Yeah, no, I'm totally for public engagement. I think at some point we need to do that.
and I would suggest that we have, if we have it, that we would have it in the south end of the municipality, close to where the project's gonna be. I would suggest that we would go all again.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I mean, that's who's gonna be impacted. I mean, the people in our, in our wards are a long ways away from it. I mean, it's not that that should matter, but I just think that would make more sense to have where the greater population is. And I don't know if we limit it to residents of our municipality or people from the neighboring municipalities would be welcome to attend.
Or even that committee that you're saying that you want them to let everybody know what's going on. Right? Well, would they be, well, that, the end of the committee.
Yeah,
All the
sure happen there, but I think the request I'm getting, is that people want to engage with the council.
Well, but they wanted to know what that committee is doing.
Yeah, I'm fine, yeah, I see no problem with that. But it should be the council there to answer questions, and it's not a meeting, it's not a committee meeting, it's a public engagement. This municipality, public.
So again, I'm not opposed to the motion, but I just wanna, and I guess you say what the next 2 months, so that's kind of open-ended, because I'd like to see this IAC comment period go by first and see what comes out of that. Just, it will give more value to a public meeting if we can kind of see the public engagement on that side, and then the 2 webinars coming up tomorrow and the next day. And that. So any more comments, anybody?
So we set this for, say, June, sometime. Early in June.
Well, let's not put a date on it today. I mean, the motion, the concept of motion says the next 2 months, which would be May, June. And then maybe we can do that at one of our future meetings, which would be, well, we have one in early May.
Probably more their actual seat there, so it might be with
Yeah, when is he back?
the team.
Yeah, so he'll be back for the next council meeting, so, yeah, let's not put a hard date on it now.
Many people show up at the anniversary and maybe have a lot of things, questions to ask.
When is that again? That's
So, the 13th,
the day before council.
the day of council. Right?
Oh, yeah, it is 13th.
You want this on your next agenda then to talk about the date or?
We can talk about that later, but yeah, obviously we will, if this motion passes, we will have to discuss a bit, the date, the venue. Probably the facilitator. Okay, well. The motion is before, so if there's no more comments, so we'll call for the vote, all in favor? Yeah. Linda?
There's video.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
So that's carried. Let's take a break before we get into the heavy stuff here.
Felt like you were rushing towards it because we're so excited. That's exactly what it did.
Okay, we'll reconvene. Linda, hopefully you're able to join us again, but if not, we understand, so we will move to 6.15A. The 2024 audited financial statements and CEO, acting CEO / finance manager.
Slash, yeah. Busy guy. So here for council, same format that I've used the last couple of years. Unfortunately, just with the timing, our accounting or our external auditor team was unable to make it. If there are any questions or concerns, we can get in touch with them and get answers very quickly. I'm not expecting any. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to review these because as they always are, they're like 30 pages long, so there's a lot of information in them. What I have done, obviously bringing this to you for adoption as is required. Important that we do that today, even with some changes, because we have some filings that have to occur by May 1st. As far as the information contained in the statements I've listed, similarly to last year and the year before, just all the different indicators that municipal affairs monitors that are related to our financial statements. Because so you'll see all of that is good news. We meet every single one or exceed in most instances. Except for the second year in a row, the infrastructure investment, which is point number 11. What they're looking for there is that we are investing more in capital assets than the amount of our annual depreciation. We had a lot of contingent grant projects last year in our budget, as well as just some timing things that got pushed back. So what it looks like on paper with what we actually achieved is we were actually quite short there. One flag, not the end of the world. Municipal affairs, just something that they'll continue to monitor as we move forward. We're also aware of it, so we can swing that quite heavily with one or two big projects. It's not very complicated. Just as a thing to note. Any questions on the indicators? There's a lot of information there. If there's anything that has a percentage or is a calculation that was done. Usually many questions on this.
No, just a comment that I think it looks very well. You met or exceeded most of them. And so that's.
And the big one obviously is the audit opinion. So we're good there. Always first and foremost, I think that's why I put it as the first one. Yeah. So that's the biggest thing you guys are looking for. If that ever comes to you the other way, that means we've got issues in the financial statements that the auditors aren't comfortable with, so. That wouldn't be good for my job security. Just moving on then to the other points of note, so I have made a couple comments where I thought maybe there would be questions from you or anybody else who reads them. So first of all, similarly to last year, but when it comes to our investment holdings, important to distinguish because they are presented separately, unrealized versus realized losses. So you guys can see this on the statement, which would be page 21 of this. Page 5 of the statements, the statement of operations. So obviously we don't budget for realized gains or losses on our statements. Just kind of occur depending on what markets in the economy do. Typically, we won't realize them. That would occur mostly from either cashing NGICs early or trading bonds rather than holding them to maturity, which we only do the first draft for cash. So that's an issue this year. Then some of the variances, I mean, I've talked about them, written them down. Not a lot of big things. They're mostly on the capital side, so. We received less capital money because we did less capital projects and we had some grant applications that were unsuccessful. At the end of the day. Don't really need to just read all those, so really open for any questions you guys may have. I was looking to have these adopted by council.
Gosh.
Are, any of our bonds coming due right away, or is it, are they?
They're typically laddered, getting, so I don't, off the top of my head, I don't remember when the next maturity is. They are laddered, so we typically have. One or two either bonds or GICs reaching into their term or maturing. Annually, and then we look at the most competitive option to reinvest in. Take advice from the service providers who or the account managers who do that for us. Go from there, and it also depends on what things are looking like. So obviously, while we were undergoing our arbitration, liquidity was kind of important because we didn't know if we were going to need money or not, right? But additional money than we had budgeted. Right now, we're kind of back in a, we can hold things to term. Try if any very significant surprises. So, we could look to kind of lock in for a couple of years.
But is our bond market fluctuating as bad as, say, like what we're hearing in the news?
Oh, yeah, you're not by any means. But the nice thing with that, most of you haven't had a lot of newly issued bonds, so the rates that you're getting right now are actually quite good, comparatively speaking. And as long as you hold those until they mature.
Motion to accept the
Adopt specifically,
financial statements.
and actually no, we're not gonna do that part. So just the adoption of the statements. Just in conversations with the auditor, we typically reallocate that unrestricted surplus amount too. Not really warranted this year solely because a big part of it is the tax revenue we brought in because of the assessment appeal that we've ongoing. So if council is okay, we're just gonna leave that there. It'll either correct itself over the next year here or two, or we will reallocate it if the decision upholds the assessment. That can all be done at a later time. So for now, just the adoption of this.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, any last comments? All in favor?
I'll make the motion.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Linda, Gloria, I beat you to it, so.
That's okay.
Next one's the budget. Yeah, get your hand up quick.
So item B is a 2025-2029 operating and capital budgets.
Right.
We'll have you on deck for that one. Okay,
Yeah, so on this again, it's 87 or so pages. The intent is not to walk council through it line by line again. So what I've done and how I've structured this is just showing you what has changed since the adoption of the preliminary. So we've had a couple of things change. Obviously, all our requisitions were not available at that time, so those have been finalized. They are flow through costs anyway, so they don't have a net tax impact on us. Then aside from that, we've hammered out some capital things, so actually a big reduction in capital sharing from the town of Manning because the fire truck has kind of been put on pause again. So we've reduced that and offset that. We've typically funded all the capital requests between our ICF communities with reserve funds that we have on hand for that. The energy committee budget is shown, but it's always going to be zero. We've collected fees from everybody, so as we spend money related to that, it's just going to have a revenue that offsets that. It'll always be in no direct cost to our municipality. Policing was a pleasant surprise. That actually was reduced from where it was before. It was reduced substantially and then it was revised and increased a little bit, but at the end of the day, we're actually saved about $40,000 there compared to last year.
This is a surprise, we have read it before, we were gonna get an increase. And then they did, and then they reduced it.
Well, and that increase though was not, it was still reduced from where we were last year, so. And a lot of that though is contingent on their formula, which is a very long formula. So I think maybe their overall budget increased, but our proportionate share of that was. That is essentially a bill handed to us from the province that we just pay. We have no real control over it. Unless you guys wanted to get into doing your own.
Resource.
Well, no, I won't say that. Yes, but no, census would change it. If you felt that your population was being inaccurately reflected, or you could challenge your equalized assessment. Neither of which I have any justification to give you.
Especially if it's a decrease, we wanna.
No,
we wanna-
yeah, leave that alone. Then we had some tenders closed in the transportation world, so we had our greater maintenance tenders closed, so we've reconfigured the budgets there. And our re-gravel, you guys have set the haul rates, so we've made some adjustments there as well.
So the tender, greater tenders went up 100, but the gravel hole went down 380.
Yeah, and we were quite high in the original estimates there, just.
Yeah,
What
we,
we were doing and based on increasing rates. again,
for
like,
gravel hole, yes,
Yeah.
and can I actually just butt in on this?
You can do whatever you want.
So I firstly, hat in hand, have to apologize. My report for the gravel haul rates was mistaken. For what our rates were last year. They were actually $1.40 per ton loading factor
Last year,
last year. We had set them now for $1.50 loading factor for this year. The savings, everything that we discussed, that was all accurate. It was just the report itself. There was a typo and I went with what I had.
Was it 190?
Yeah, I think that's what I had said it was, but it was 140, but we set it to 150. So,
So we actually.
yeah, at the end of the day, and then we knocked off fuel surcharge. That was the other thing that we did,
and then the ton kilometer rate, that
was we adjusted from to 22 cents, which was 20 cents last year. So we can discuss that further
in your report.
and during my report, but I just wanted the apology and for that.
And most importantly for this, though, it's a savings from what we had in the preliminary budget. Even though the rates are up, right, so. And then the only change we had in the capital budget, council had a motion to award the irrigation system at Keg River, so we just formalized that. And then we're having some discussions about potentially buying out leased graders, so we didn't build anything additional into 2025, but there's an amount to buy out a grader next year. Kind of a complicated situation, but when we lease these and pay them up front, they give us a guaranteed buyback price. And what we're seeing now with the price of everything going crazy is what they're willing to give us on trade is actually substantially higher than what that guaranteed buyback is. So in certain instances, it's going to make sense for us to actually go through the motions of buying that from whichever the finance provider is, and then trading it in directly with the dealer. And in some cases, if the hours are low enough, you might even delay that by a year and just use that as a spare instead of selling So all things will hammer out administratively.
And you kind of skipped over number 4.
Oh, I missed one, yeah, so, we're in negotiations there, so, we kind of just built adjustments in based on your guys' mandate.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, just, and that is
Yeah.
what you use for the base.
Kind of hard to deviate from that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I do as a starting point, and then, where it goes. Obviously, if it's more than that, council will have to be brought back in and make motions, or if it's
Cash in
less
some of the
than
bonds.
it's cashing in bonds there. So therefore, I guess final adoption or questions? And I guess I kind of skipped over the figures just because we're gonna, the actual tax requirements, because those are gonna go through in the next one. Written out in the tax bylaw
Yeah,
discussion.
so we'll come to that, so I mean. I don't think the budget is gonna change, it's just how we're gonna.
Yeah,
balance
how
it.
you're gonna fund it,
So
yeah.
we're gonna fund it, yeah. So any questions on the budget? I'm not seeing any, I'll need a motion to pass 2025-29 operating and capital budget. Oh yeah, Linda's on deck. So Linda, we're gonna have you make that motion if you're still okay with it?
Thanks, yep. Yeah, I'm still okay. Even though he did tell us a story, Mr.
Okay,
Public
I'll call for the vote.
Works man.
Mr. Public Works. I thought I was getting blamed for something there.
I'll call for the vote, all in favor? I'll see Linda made the motion, so she's in favor, that's carried. Now we can move down to item
I'm
C,
trying to mute myself.
the property tax bylaw. Better known as, city of the mill rate.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna share my. Or we can go through the report first, I guess, and then I can share the screen.
Sure.
So, before we get there, I just want to point out, you guys do have a copy of the bylaw in here right now. That bylaw, though, depending on this discussion, the rates that I've highlighted in pink are subject to change. So you're not gonna make any decisions that are gonna change any of your requisition amounts. But the municipal tax dollars that you're collecting may change, and you have power to change those rates. So just so you are aware, I've included 2 of the calculation sheets to kind of show some different scenarios. I also, like we've done in the past, share my screen and we can go through any kind of scenario you guys want to see as far as playing around with the mill rates. But before we get there, just a couple that I think are fairly important points to point out. So just starting from assessment point of view, residential assessments being the ones that we're probably going to hear about the most. Assessed values themselves are up 4.8% in our assessed values. Farmland once again remains largely unchanged. So council would have saw a thing from RMA, but they set assessment year modifiers annually. Farmland, these values have not changed in a very, very long time and not changed again. So virtually flat there. Industrial improvements were decreased fairly substantially. Kind of some comments there
So,
from what I can come up with.
so that 9.7 million, was that actual tax paid or was that assessed?
No, this is all
Assessed.
assessed values. Yeah, and it's kind of offset too, because you'll see. Then we have a large increase in VIP, so almost the same dollars, just percentages are different, right? So we had another increase there. We've got another appeal there. I understand that they're also. One of the assessed parties related to that is scheduled time to come speak with council at a later date as well. And then from the linear well and pipeline perspective, also a fairly substantial increase, and this is related to the phase in of the pipelines that were done there a couple of years back. So kind of how we can expect to see an increase there. I think they phase it in over 3 years, if I remember correctly. So we'll have some more assessed dollars coming our way in the future. So just some other factors to consider. Some things that are often talked about when you're talking about setting mill rates.
So number four, you said, so that's kind of before the tribunal now, you know,
Yeah.
appeal, but you said that they want to come to council as well.
I have no idea what the topic is.
Yeah.
I would assume it's separate from the appeal itself. The appeal dates are set,
Yes.
there's a lot of dates.
In your report later on.
Yes. So, and we're only there, just so council's aware, just to monitor it and have a right now understanding of what's gonna happen. As you've seen, because I've been telling you about this for 2 years, the land and the property rights tribunal moves so quickly. I just don't really like being surprised in the middle of trying to put together a budget for you guys, so it's nice to have a heads up of what may happen. School requisition was up fairly substantially, so. We as administration are gonna hear about this regardless of what you do with mill rates for municipal purposes, because at the end of the day. People's tax bill will be higher even if you didn't change it, solely because that requisition went up fairly substantially. That is not our money, we just collect it on behalf of the province and then pay it back to them. But there's kind of a disconnect there, and most people just look at the bottom line of their tax bill and here's how much I have to pay the county. Gonna be weary of that. The annual inflation figures I gave you, so a lot of municipalities. Many have policies where they'll always increase by inflation unless they're seeing growth that offsets that. So for calendar 2024, inflation was 2.9%, according to Statistics Canada. And then just one other thing you guys are gonna have to think about when we get to these different scenarios is we always have the option to increase kind of evenly across every class that we have established, or you have the ability to fluctuate and hit certain ones higher than others. Wish to, as long as it retains the maximum 5-to-1 ratio, which I don't think you guys would ever propose anything that would make us contradict that, just because we're already so close.
What is it? I seen some.
Yeah, our current is 2.32 to 1 res to non-res. So, walk you through just a couple things now. First and foremost, the amount of money we need to raise for municipal taxes expressed in the bylaw is given up. So from an operating perspective, 16.46 million. We have debt principal repayments that have to be made, so they're 1.45 million. Capital expenses that we're funding through the use of tax dollars, 1.5 million. And then our requisition amounts are also first page of the bylaw there, they're all split out. So the total that needs to be raised for municipal purposes is 19.47 million. So in all of these calculations, what I'll do is I'll show you the mill rates, show you total tax revenue for municipal purposes, and then an excess or a shortfall. Important to note, we can meet our cash requirements without changing mill rates. Maybe, and this is fun for me to have to say it like this, but all of that is contingent on 2 assessment appeals that can swing your tax dollars by a lot of money. The ongoing appeal that we have for last year can swing it by $2.8 million. Using the assessed value that was requested in their appeal versus what was actually assessed and the mill rates that were in place.
And that's just for 1 year,
It's for 1 year.
but we still working on 2023.
Yeah, so
So you say you have 2 appeals going on?
they have 2 years of appeals going on.
It's the
So
same.
the first year was $1.6-ish million in tax revenue. That would be the impact to us, and the second year is 2.8, separate from each other. So I would assume that depending on what happens in the first year's appeal, if it's unfavorable, the second one would probably just be withdrawn. Can't say that for certain, but that would be my assumption.
Conversely,
The basis is the same thing.
if they're successful in the first one, then they're most likely to be successful.
In the second,
Yeah.
probably.
And-
So what no finance guy wants to do, but now I have to do, is tell you. You could not change your mill rates and you could actually have $700,000 more than we need. Or if that assessment appeal is successful, you could actually be short 2 million. And this is the same problem we had last year when we did this, right? And
But a year later, we're still
yeah,
wiser.
no, yeah, exactly. And important to note that the big reason is we had some pretty substantial industrial and DIP assessment increases, right? So that's where the additional revenue is coming from. That's why you can technically meet your requirements without changing.
And so do we have to include this pending appeal in our budget, or like if we end up having to pay that?
Yeah, so this happened once with another appeal that happened all across the province. When this body approved it or awarded it, they emailed us all back 2 years later and said, please go amend your tax rolls. And we went, we can't, because you tell us we can't, because it is closed, because that was 2 years ago. And then we got back, I'm not even kidding, you'll figure it out. So what it looks like in practice is you just essentially credit their current taxes, that amount. So if they were successful for 1 or 2 years, however many of these the LPRT could get through, we would just collect that much less money from that ratepayer.
Oh,
If that makes sense.
In
Yeah.
future years.
Yeah. Well, or this year,
Yeah.
right? The hearings are set for May, so. For the first one anyway. So it's kind of a risk. I mean, at some point, if it was awarded, well, then that means that you've collected too much tax the last 2 years essentially. So, and you can see on our statements, we did post a surplus. A large part of that was related exactly to that, right? We're not banking on spending every one of those dollars while it's being appealed. That would be very poor planning. But at the same time, council needs to be prepared that you're either gonna be okay budget wise, or you're gonna be short $2 million. From that standpoint, when you're having to credit these guys back.
So these appeals, it's either all or none, there's no
Or
compromise.
it could literally fall anywhere on a broad range of. So I think that the two that you have here, well, I went kind of all or nothing, just to kind of show you the extremes. We can go anywhere in between.
Yeah, but that's
So it's-
unknown.
So is that like the full amount of their tax roll, or just a portion that they're disputing?
The portion that they're disputing. Yeah.
What happened, really say. They did a big upgrade at the mill rate, redid their wood room and their, I think their energy system and everything, so it all got assessed.
Well, that's a portion of it. That's not actually what they're fighting.
No.
My understanding of what happened, the whole shift to when the DIP assessment body come into place and everything was separated and segregated, handled by the province, no longer handled by assessors on behalf of the province. There was a large arbitrary depreciation factor that was removed to the tune of a lot of money. It's weird that they can do that, but you can. So you kind of start with, here's an inventory of all of our machinery, equipment, land, buildings, everything, and you start from there. And then the assessor has the ability, just like with a residential assessment, to add additional depreciation based on age, based on location, based on services, based on all sorts of kind of subjective or tertiary factors. And so that's kind of what changed substantially. And then, of course, the phase in of their addition just kind of compounded that increase. So they saw a very, very significant increase in a 2-year period. Some of which they should have expected with a $100 million upgrade, but not all of it. And that's why it's very hard for me to actually give you an opinion on what's going to happen, because that is all handled outside of us. We have no, I don't want to say no skin in the game, because it impacts us very materially, but we're not going to take a position, because this is ultimately the provincial assessment body versus the largest taxpayer in our municipalities. We're going to cautiously watch and plan accordingly.
Well, given all the other increases, I really don't like the idea of increasing taxes. Just like-
And that is an option, that is the option that's here. The only thing is, you will see from this year's statements to next year's statements, you will see a large change in our cap essentially. Because we'll spend what we brought in and probably more depending on how this appeal goes.
So, I mean. Residential DIP machinery equipment, I mean, they're. One period hefty knowing already. So how much more we can. Squeeze in, and I know some of our, especially the energy sector, they're already. Saying it's. Depressed prices, maturing fields. Costs keep going up. And they're not saying they're gonna appeal it, but how much? So it's two scenarios you give us is 0% or 10%.
And the justification being that's just meeting, considering the appeals ongoing.
Yeah.
So that was, no change is kind of the standard one to give you guys. This would be changing to the full extent to consider that appeal if it was
Right.
successful. So again, it can be anywhere in between there.
Yes, so I'm just thinking. Maybe we have to consider inflation or cost, and I don't know what inflation is it 3% or 5% or?
Depends who you listen, give you the inflation
Yeah.
factors, but if you just pull it online, it's 2.1%.
But in this other. So we're halfway there, right?
Yeah.
Which, I mean. We don't know how this appeal is gonna go. But they kind of have to prepare for it, and we're not in such bad shape. And that doesn't really impact, I mean, the school requisition was probably impacting as much as anything, right? That 8% or whatever you said, the increase.
That's what it worked out to for our repairs. And the biggest problem there is the residential people are gonna notice it the most. Because we had such a huge increase to the non-residential assessment that their mill rate for that actually dropped. But there, for the residential side, it's gonna be an increase already.
I think
It's 5%.
2.9% for
Yeah.
inflation.
Yeah, just to show you.
What did 5% do? What's your bill? 2 million?
So there you're about, right, because 2 million considering the appeal, so 5% would be about half. Which we probably all could have guessed, because they should be 10.27 to
Yeah.
fully meet it. I haven't, I know that, I got asked for the town, by the town of Peace River, what we were going to approve, they were considering theirs as well. I haven't seen any of our other neighbors actually pass them yet. I've only heard about the cities because that's what you hear on the news, and they were 7, 8, 9, yeah.
Never raised theirs.
They held them.
Yeah.
Well, they said they were already.
Yeah. Understood.
This is, so either last meeting or this meeting is kind of the standard time for everybody to do it.
So in previous budget discussions, you've taken a average property or residential property and applied changes to that, so you can see. Yeah, that would be one.
And I mean, I do that usually on a residential standpoint,
Yeah.
so even if we do a $300,000. $6 just for municipal purposes,
With a 5% change. That's not
and then we have to factor in
the requisition.
I have mine open up on my screen here.
$6 and. So it'd be $150, $300,000. It would be the difference.
Only 96 of that is municipal.
Yeah.
Somewhere in our tax services, we gotta get that in the mood. If you have the ability to do that, seriously.
Wow.
That's for sure.
You don't really have the ability to do that.
Or unless you put a
So
through to
the 96, is that a combination of the increase in assessment as well as the, or is that just?
No, that would just be mill rate,
Just
yeah.
just the mill rate.
I can't, like, some houses will increase, some will
Correct.
decrease, yeah.
Yeah.
All I can show you simply is, given this cost, here's what it would equate to,
What was the requisitions?
$66 on a $300,000 house.
inflation. 3% rate of inflation, but.
Round up, yeah. Yeah. You're 2.99.
Three cents better than fire.
Yeah.
For 10 rate. That's,
And the reality of it is, it's just you're budgeting with some unknowns, right? So that's kind of,
and that's right across all classes, right?
that's what I've done for now.
I mean, we keep hearing that farmland is very under taxed. I mean, the problem is you double it and you really don't gain much, right? Is looking at. That's your 0% scenario. Farmland is only generating not even $500,000, right? And the $27 million budget. And 18 million reais.
Yeah, so if you wanted to double it, just as you said that. For calculation purposes, so yeah, you take that out to almost $1 million.
So we did more than double, didn't you? No.
100% change,
Oh,
maybe
okay.
doubling, yeah.
Okay. I really think that the province is way behind in that assessment, you know, the way things have changed. Now,
That's,
I mean, not just doubling for illustration purposes, but
well, you didn't want to leave that in?
I think you could put in something
6%.
for 10%.
And the argument you hear from people really is you kind of, it's what you see, right? You're seeing bigger and bigger equipment out on the roads.
Yes, well, it is affecting our infrastructure, right? All that. Agree.
I mean, residential impact on our infrastructure hasn't changed much. I guess we have water lines and things to look after, but I can see the impact is, you know, V drains upgrading, big air seeders, wider approaches needed. And I'm sure that people are draining water into our ditches.
I think that's the only class I've actually heard, like, we would rather see it there.
Yes,
than on the
for sure.
houses. From a few people. I don't want to speak for everybody, I'm sure there's a large portion of the population that would love to see no increases at all anywhere, but.
So I mean, that's only increasing it by $40,000 for.
Yeah, 51,000.
51,000.
Well, that's better than moving. I think that's good.
So now
Every
we're,
year it should go up a little bit.
now we have a surplus of 1.3.
Potentially, yeah.
It's close to. You know,
And really, at the end of the day, if those appeals are upheld and that's the new reality, then there's room to either decrease them and adjust them and have some justification, or alternatively, look at utilizing that to expand the services, so, right?
When we say successful, if we're successful.
Well, yeah, successful is subjective. depending.
For us,
I just mean, so when I say if the deal is successful, if they get what they're asking, for, right?
Mm.
They were unsuccessful. Then you would realize this is your new reality with tax dollars. And we know we're gonna see probably at least another year of increases on the well and pipeline side. Seems as though the residential values in this province continually go up every year. So I mean, it's your assessment base is growing, your population is not. So it's just hitting the same amount of people a little bit harder.
So we have some agreements coming due too, you know, like ICFs and fire services. But I don't imagine they're gonna say, well, you've been giving us too much. Maybe they can reduce that.
Maybe they will.
Well, there's an election coming up, but maybe. That's gonna be good or bad, or. So, yeah. I guess we deal with it 1 year at a time and the outcomes of these appeals, expiring ICF agreements, municipal agreements of all sorts that we have with our neighbors. Yeah, that'll be a challenge.
That'll be the next puzzle.
Yeah, and, yeah, we'll be sharpening your pencil potentially next October, November, and start working, already working where you're going to. There are options, right? I mean, there's service level reductions, if it comes down to that, or capital reduction. But we don't know that what lies ahead yet, well, some of these things get resolved. So back to your, well, you gotta make your percentages, I guess, you don't know there, so.
That's what your new rates would look like. Because you changed everything equally, we didn't change your ratio at all, so it'll remain the same.
You know, so that the change on the farmland is so minor.
mhm.
It looks like a big number, but it really isn't.
And a lot of times we get comments from other, like when we're comparing ourselves to other municipalities, this ratio is very good. The problem being like, you don't really want to go further, because if you look at the way that your revenue is actually split, 84% of our revenue is coming from non-residential sources. So if we were up around that 5 to 1, we would be probably closer to 90–91%.
Yeah, well, you put yourself in a pretty vulnerable position there. If, something happens to go wrong with those big contributors. Well, I mean. And if this, you did your scenario there on a $300,000 property.
Yeah.
You're using 5% or 3%? You're using 5%.
Well, I've got it just so that it changes based on these numbers. So this would be a $110 difference altogether.
With the requisition. And seriously, I don't know if that's acceptable, politically acceptable, or municipal, put a note in with the tax notice saying that they're explaining that school requisition is taking such a jump, and that people would even read that, they just look at the bottom number, like you said.
And it's a lot of things, right? We're not exempt from inflation either.
Well,
And I've told you this started at what we have to pay for a grader, just solely in the time that I've been working here and stuff. Right, so when you look at things like that, you know, and everybody says that everything costs more, well, it costs more for us too, for the supplies we use, contractors we hire, people we have employed. Everything costs more.
So there's not a base on the taxes that you can comment on?
We could put a little, we can't write a novel, yeah.
Gotcha.
I think we have like 200 characters that we can put in that, just like on our invoices.
But you do. it-
Historically, we've done like an insert if you want to say something, or we would do,
I know
Thing in
how-
the
I know how
paper.
we like to put in some-
No, I think sort of. For those that take the time to read an insert. You know, it might be a little more satisfying. I mean, not, if you have increased tax bill, it's never satisfying, but we will explain that we have a school requisition, we have a police requisition,
That's-
we have a housing
that's out of our
requisition.
control.
And then we're also facing inflationary costs. And I just think it kind of helps to justify.
you phrased or framed it in a way where you've just kept pace with inflation more or less,
Right.
except for the farmers, and that's. Some of them you'll be able to justify that too, and some can't, but.
So again, a 10% increase on a $200. You know, if you're paying $200 for a quarter section of farmland, right? So it's gonna go up an extra. $10, right? And if you want
Going back again. What's it?
$5,000 for that order. Comments, anybody want to see some different numbers, please?
Oh.
Or- Gary, you're frowning.
Yeah, looking at this.
Terry?
No, hadn't we increased the farmland last time or last year?
Last time, I think we held them.
Or was it 2 years ago that we?
Yeah, it wasn't 2 years, I don't know,
Okay.
a big jump there one time.
Well, and then we had also, we increased the minimum, right?
That was
Minimum
quite a
charge, that's
quite a while ago.
50 to 75, and then we had to put it back. to
Yeah.
50, right? Not here, not me, but when I remember. And so is the minimum still 50?
Yeah, and that's in the bylaws, well, that's specified, I think on the last page.
Increase that.
The only problem with that is I don't have a good report that I can get that shows how many. Different properties that actually impacts. So until we. Can, but
So
it's complicated.
the big thing that impacts, impact me, not
So raising.
the raising this is we
Yeah.
have no municipal services, right? They're basically not in the road, we can get a lot of them. And so if it's multiple parcels, or if it's a 10 quarter section grazing lease, then it's mostly just swamp and bush. You know, I think there'd be a lot of pushback on that.
Well, in my own case, I have a farmland lease. And there's little parcels on some of the small as a quarter of an acre, and I'm paying the minimum price on all those pieces. I don't even own it, so there's those scenarios out there too.
And those are the people we heard from. When that changed, yes, because there's a lot of people driving just like
Well,
that.
I
in the
think
same
before it
situation.
used to be sort of in the. But
Well, it
done
was.
differently, it's just a grazing lease that wasn't.
That is an administrative nightmare, because all that was happening is they would take every parcel, because we have to assess every parcel. So when our assessor goes out, they give an assessment of everyone, but then we just created an arbitrary one and roll all those together. So it was an administrative burden. And really, the assessor didn't like it, because then if he had to deal with complaints, which. What's on farmland, but. It's confusing.
It was the news message here, I didn't see it all.
Farmers equipment costs has increased as well. Would be, and yeah, everybody's house, first house too, and not just equipment, their financing rates also increase.
Well, price of fuel, fertilizer, chemicals.
That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, and from our point, Linda, we just have to. Kind of relay the message that we're not immune to that either, unfortunately, right? So you either deal with, you start reducing everything everywhere from our end, or we need to bring in more to cover those same increasing costs.
Well,
I'm trying to say that neutrally, so I'm not. Cause I also pay taxes here.
no,
People want. I was just gonna say, people want the same level of service. Bottom line, it's costing more.
yeah, so I mean, that's the decision that we're gonna be faced with potentially, right, is. Can we maintain those levels of service, right?
Well, last year we fell short with a lot of budgeting. We couldn't finish. finish all the jobs.
Yes. Alright, you know, just think of worst case scenarios, like what happened in Zavish's Mill and Hines Creek, right? So all of a sudden, whatever they were paying the village of Hines Creek, the taxes will be gone, right?
Next year.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. The year that it actually burns down is the worst, because they're still gonna have to pay it.
I mean, they may rebuild, but that's not gonna be an easy decision with the way the economy is, and it doesn't happen overnight, so. Well, I'm okay with what you've got on the screen right now, but,
Mhm.
And
no,
so,
that's the wrong word, I'm not okay with
You're
it.
not-
I think we can accept that. So what about if we not leave it, just have administration put an insert in, your pie charts are always good at open houses.
yeah. That farm one never went very good. I'll never forget that, the first meeting I ever went to. Where's the farm tax revenue? I was like, oh, it's there. You can see it.
The zoom in.
The expanded chart. So if council's okay, if this is what you wanna do, is we're just gonna include the new rates in the motion solely because you didn't have a copy of the bylaw that had that in there. So it will say the bylaw be adopted with the municipal rates as shown, and we'll include that motion.
In the bylaw.
Yeah.
I'll fix this.
Yeah.
Later.
Yeah.
So you would give readings to this bylaw, and then just with the changes to the municipal mill rates. To be. If that is the way council would like to proceed, that way at least I can cross-reference the bylaw to the motion.
You're gonna make that motion, go ahead. So Councilor Decker was gonna give first reading, as the motion is on your screen. And last chance for comments.
What is that, what is our bottom line then, to look at that, last peak in our.
With the actual revenue that you're gonna get is
1.2
right here,
surplus,
20.8 million.
which gives a surplus of
Potential surplus, 1.3, yeah.
1.3,
And
Potential.
or a potential shortfall of 1.4.
depending on the appeal, right?
Yeah, so I guess we're gambling a little bit on the appeal here.
And I would think it's probably safe to assume that the appeal is not gonna go 100% either way. If there's any changes, like previously where in the middle. Things usually are.
And we do have means of dealing with it, right? I mean, with reserves and all the things that we,
Yeah, and ultimately, we've brought in more. If it went the one way, we've brought in more taxes than we should have been, right? So. Essentially,
we can do more things and,
yeah,
okay, so any other comments? No, I'll call for the vote, all in favor?
that was one of the first readings.
First reading, yeah, that was by Gloria.
Yes,
Okay,
trying
well,
to raise my hand, but it's not working.
well, your voice is fine.
Stop the share so I can see her.
Okay, we'll move to second reading.
I'll move second. reading.
Okay, Councillor Zinsky makes second reading. Any comments? All in favor? Linda, you're in favor?
It's on audio and videos.
Okay, well, that's the majority carried anyway, so proceed to third and final. Councillor Reese, all in favor?
I'll make,
Okay, thank you.
okay. Yes,
And motion for third and final reading by law 25-14-501, Councillor Thies, all in favor?
Yes.
I've got all these information, like summer kid and so many. So
Yeah, she got her. Yep.
yeah,
Thank you, council.
Okay, well, thank you, Josh, for all that. That's a good job. So now we can move to item D, Director of Finance report.
Yeah, so. Just once again, the council grant summary in here, just for you guys to keep eyes on. Unless there's any questions, I can just glance over that. The appeal we've hit on quite a few times, but the dates are there, so I'll be virtually attending. Should have said that in the write-up, but virtually. It's the important part. The hearings on the 12th and 13th. Which obviously is gonna conflict with council, I guess, now that I'm thinking about it, so. Hopefully that one doesn't drag on 2 days, and then they've actually got a 10-day window. Set for the second part of the hearing if required, so. I will do my best to virtually watch what I can. I can't promise I'll see all of it depending on how it takes. See how far we can get.
And this one is strictly the 2023.
Yeah. So 2023 taxes based on 2022 assessments,
Yeah.
it's the year back, but
So that will kind of set a precedent for the.
I would think so, yeah.
And so is this where they make the decision or?
The way that it was explained to me. The preliminary hearing is gonna be back and forth arguments and. They can kind of indicate which way it's gonna go and. Maybe have for all or consensus of we'll accept something, but if they stay. Hard, then it's gonna go to the. In simple terms, that's how it was related to me. So then I have another part here that actually will require a motion, so we've got 2 accounts receivable. Accounts, I guess, that are related to wastewater. Services and infrastructure that are tied to 2 properties in the hamlet of North Star. So just because they're unpaid and because they are a utility affixed to land, I've given you the Municipal Government Act. Sections that permit us doing this, so we can actually transfer the amounts owing onto the tax roll. They owe us the money regardless, it just gives you a little more. Clout to collect if you move that onto their tax roll, because people have to pay their taxes, or ultimately we can dispose of their property eventually, right? They are. It's hard to talk about that without kind of indicating what parcels they are.
Oh, no, I
So,
just didn't know if they just.
But they are still, there is still services there and there are still amounts owing for the services.
Yeah, well, when you're done the report, we can make that motion. You want to do it right now?
No, it doesn't matter. You can do them both at once if you want. So both being just accepting the rest of the report and then that. Those motions. And then the last topic was just a quick little info bit on the expo. So I've got some stats as far as attendees and comparatives. Between this year and last time, so won't come of a shock to anybody, but attendance was down and the amount of people that were actually there with booths and table booths was down as well. So we had less vendors and less booths, which makes sense. And I don't really know why. It's hard to get feedback on people who don't come, so. We are working on getting a survey out to the vendors that did come, just to get their feedback. But I guess other than that.
Yeah, the future doesn't look bright.
Well, yeah, and so. Initially, like there was actually quite a bit of shock from people as they come in to set up, because they looked and saw that we have this giant empty space. And so that was not well received from most people. We had to make some last minute changes just to kind of make it fit and shrink everything so it looked busier. Those are things we can't really do ahead of time because we don't know how many people we're gonna end up with. We always budget to have most of the booths filled. Unfortunately, this time we didn't. The downside of that is after a certain point, the contract company that comes to set this up, they charge us the same regardless. So now we're at a point where we're actually hosting this event actually cost us a little bit of money, where usually it's a break even thing. So the fix to that is either charge people more for their booths or get more people in. If you're already losing attendance, charging more for a booth probably isn't gonna work. So I don't know,
Were the vendors that never attended, were they local or?
a mixture, yeah, so. At the end of the day, though, positively, so I don't sound so negative all the time, the people that I spoke with, just kind of as they were cleaning up, most people are still happy with the amount of people that come through and with the whole event of itself, they got more people than they expected to, looking at the actual setup event and the number of booths, so I mean, that's the shining light at the end of that.
Yeah, the attendees were very similar, just the number of movements.
Yeah, still down by about 80 people, so that's still 11%. Yeah, I have that noted. And it's just hard to get feedback because people don't want to do that. I mean, the weather was bad, so nobody was out enjoying the sunshine. Can't use that as an excuse.
Yeah, that was actually a good excuse to go do something like this.
So I don't know, eventually we'll see what kind of feedback we get, but for council, know that, you know, that's now a service we're offering that's costing us something. Ultimately, a question is gonna be, do we look at doing this 2 years again? Or in 2 years' time again, or do we wanna look at maybe extending that? Obviously not a decision we need today, we'll come back depending on what we get, but. And then any other feedback that you guys haven't given.
So I've talked to people with the Lac Cardinal Economic Development, I think that's what they're called. They represent Berwyn, Brickshaw, MD of Peace. Used to be Peace River, but Peace River pulled out. Maybe that's it, but they kind of see similar areas with us, that they would welcome us into their organization. I mean, still be a member of PREDA, which they are as well. I'm talking about the town of Grimshaw and MD of Peace, I think are members of both. And maybe they could help, you know, facilitate this with the Chamber of Commerce, whoever does this, to the trade shows, Cincinnati and District Chamber is kind of a.
So we, being the county, organized it and covered the costs. The town lets us use the arena, which is nice, and the chamber usually lines up the entertainment section or does a little bit of what they can, and then we all publish the advertising and things like that.
Right.
A little different than, I think in Peace River, the chamber actually exits. That's a different ballgame though, their chamber is quite a bit bigger. Obviously, there's a lot more businesses within their municipality. We did have a text come through here, we've got 21 responses to that survey already too, so we are getting some feedback, which is good. It closes in, which is right. Yeah.
And then you have a deadline on the company that you rent all the foods from.
Yeah,
So,
and we also have a deadline for registration, but I mean, we had 4 people register after that deadline, because are we gonna turn more people away? No.
no, I could see
Yeah.
that being
I mean,
area, but I mean, maybe have a certain, 70% or something. Not,
yeah, and it's, so the flip side of that is if we went with our hard numbers at our deadline and that was the same time we had to communicate what we needed to the vendor, you would have to say no to anybody registering late, which I'm fine with. I mean, a deadline is the deadline.
right. Yeah.
But I guess my comment about Black Cardinal, just since we don't have an economic development person here, right, that maybe they would take that role on for us, as a part-time, and I don't know what that would look like, but seemed to me that those are the people that's their job, is to kind of promote trade shows and promote anything, I guess, that's related to economic development, which there's I think truly is kind of showcasing what we have and. I don't know if that would. Gain you one more booth, it would have given you 20 more booths, I don't know. There's a lot of people in the south end that weren't present here, right, and you sort of allegiance selling raffle tickets on the side, is that really, you know, I mean, that was good that they were there, but I would like to see, you know, Rocky Mountain equipment or, you know, Geddes used to come over from Grand Prairie, put a booth in to sell agriculture supplies or UFA. There was a lot of, in my mind, people are absent that this region really supports that. So maybe like Misty is ED for them to get on that, right? But I think they will have a delegation coming here sometime. They haven't reached out to you yet.
No.
So, yeah, it's kind of on way support right now, I think, the way, you know. Okay, any other questions on Josh's report? Well, we'll give a motion to acknowledge receipt and add in those accounts to the tax roll.
You can do that.
Okay, Councillor Peace does that. All in favor?
I make that motion.
Thanks, Linda.
Yes.
Okay, next Josh, page 2, agenda. Brings us to the DPW report. Charles?
Yes. Once again, apologies for my mishap on the gravel quarries. So I attended a learning session at RMA office in Edmonton. There was a lot of really good information that came out of it. It was a week long in Edmonton and 2 days virtually after work. I just did it from home. Tons of good information, really good networking with some people that are actually dedicated to procurement for their municipalities. Not like us, and I'm not saying we need that. A lot of these, like for example, the one instructor that is a procurement director in Ontario is set to put out, I think she said 350 procurement packages, so tenders, requests for quotes, stuff like that. We're not even touching those kind of numbers. So, and they do things a little different in Ontario, which became kind of obvious to a lot of us that were sitting in the room, because there was one lady, super nice lady from city of Terrace in BC. She joined in with it. The rest of us were all from Alberta. Northern Sunrise had 2 people there. Greenview had some people there. Town heads and whatnot. So it was very good networking and seeing what other municipalities are doing in regard to their tenders and getting a little more knowledge on the legalities and risk mitigation for putting those tenders, even though we are, like I said, we're maybe 15 to 20 tenders or proposals, quotes a year. I mean, still good to cover ourselves. And yeah, like I said, great information that came out of that.
Is this something similar to what Canoe does through RMA or?
So Canoe actually sponsored it. So they provided lunch for us and coffee. They actually sent one of the customer relations manager, whatever Ryan, whatever his title is. Yeah, he was there. So it wasn't put on by, it was put on by Canoe, but it was through the Ontario Public Buyers Association is who actually does the teaching. So Canoe sponsored it and brought them into Alberta, but they were the ones that did the OPDA. So
what was the goal of it though? I mean, can Ontario offer better procurement than what Canoe can, or is it just?
Oh, no, this has nothing to do with Canoe procurement.
Right.
This is just education on how to, like, so how to put a tender together, how to put proposal. And the difference is, and the risks between each different one, because a tender, for example, is if I put out a tender. There's technically two contracts, contract A, contract B. If you submit a tender package. You are bound by that package unless you withdraw before closing. So if that closes, you and I are in a contract A. Well, anybody who submits contract A that states you are going to do this service if we proceed with you. Then once we sign our contract B, then everybody else who is in contract A with us is now free of that obligation. They get their bid bonds back, they get all of that stuff done. So it is a complex process, and there is a lot of ways that we can better put our tenders and our proposals together.
So is this tenders just for goods or for goods and services?
Goods and services.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for replacing a bridge or building a road or?
Yeah, and so stuff like that, like our bridges is all through engineers, so our engineers put that package together. But we're still reviewing it, so it's good information to have. But for the ones that we put out, like for example, the graders. There was some good information that was presented that kind of wish I would have known beforehand, but still, we're fine that way, but. No, just better help us to put our packages out.
So you have to go all the way to Ontario to find somebody to,
No,
I mean, there isn't anybody.
I don't know in Alberta,
Oh,
if there is or
isn't
not.
those kind of.
Yeah, like they actually have a learning lab is what they call it, and they'll certify you and all that stuff, so.
Just one thing.
Yeah, like, and they were. I gotta give them credit, their instructors were amazing. Both, well, the virtual guy, he was there in person when we went to Edmonton. Or when I went to Edmonton, and both very knowledgeable, and like you could throw any question you could think of at them, and they either came up with an answer or they emailed you that night. And yeah, this is what we do. They gave us some templates. And a lot of things that they do, like I said, don't really apply to us because they're doing such large procurements, and they're set up a little differently with the municipal boundary type thing. Like there's Mrs. Tucker and I were talking about this the other day, is there's counties inside their municipalities.
Yeah.
Like it's
Sort of like BC, you have,
Yeah.
you have a regional municipality with counties within them.
Yeah, so that municipality is doing the procurements for all the counties inside of it. So a little different out there, but. No, it was, yeah, like I said, it was really beneficial, and we're gonna streamline some of our processes here as well, so. Any other questions on that? Perfect. Spring runoff was a little weird this year. The south thawed out really early, and we were out busy, getting things steamed out down there. Hawk Hills area kind of remain, Keg River also remain kind of frozen and really wintry looking. However, it's let loose up there, so they were up all last week and the week before doing some steaming. We did get some washouts, not very many this year, but and not a whole lot of damage either. It was the crews were pretty proactive in getting things opened up. Any questions on that? More just
I yeah. I'm just wondering about Keg. Somebody mentioned that some of the culverts weren't thought out. Do you know anything about that?
what do you think about that? But we can
Pardon?
talk afterwards if you know which ones they are.
Yeah, okay, I'll check with the person that brought it up to me.
Or you can just point me in
Okay.
their direction and we can get that sorted.
Okay, no problem.
So in Keg River, our water treatment plant. We had a bit of an equipment failure. One of the motor for the air compressor unit. It blew up on us, not literally blew up, but stopped working. We were inoperable. We were hesitant to make that known to the public, because as soon as you say water treatment plant can't make any water, everybody and their dog is gonna run over and pull water out. Thankfully, we were able to have it up and running within a few days. So there was a local contractor here that did amazing for us, sourced the motor, got her up there installed and had her up and running. We didn't, nothing hit the shut off point, so we were pretty happy with that. And now we're up and running.
Size of the motor,
Oh, I don't know what the size, you're asking the wrong guy. But I can find out. Cause I don't know what.
Air compressor, probably 5
It's,
horse.
yeah, I don't think it was very big. Yeah, it was. Just a very simple.
It's just getting old.
Oh, 100%, yeah. I don't know if that was the original, but it's been in there for a long, long time, so. And as well, we're pumping over the south reservoir, or sorry, the north reservoir into the south reservoir like we do every year. Now the water had a chance to settle, so we moved over to fill our north reservoir. And then we'll start filling from the river here. I'm not 100% clear on when, but we got a pump there ready for when the river starts moving. Because we have a very short window to fill, so we will get that done.
Okay.
I have just one more thing
Yep.
that I forgot to put in here. Our safety program, as you all know, we hired a safety project coordinator. We have a bulk of our program has been completed. We will be bringing it for council approval in the near future. The original digital system that we were going to use, we switched gears on. We canceled that obligation with that, or not obligation, but canceled that service. We had yet to pay for anything for it, so it was, but it was looking very, well, the right word is, the service level wasn't there. Then we could see some, or foresee some problems. So we canceled that, and we just entered into an agreement here with a different provider that will prove to be sufficient and very beneficial for the whole reporting process. So I'm looking forward to telling you more details on that once we have a program that I can present you. But it's coming.
What was one thing we were talking about during the budget discussion? You said we'll talk about it more later.
Oh, the dust control. Yeah, so I touched on it.
Well, that's, yeah, we worked on enough of dust control.
Or sorry, haul rates.
Oh,
That's what I meant. Yeah, so there was just a typo and I don't know how I missed that. So once again, I apologize. But our haul rates from 2024 were $1.40 per ton loading factor and 20 cents per ton kilometer hauling factor with a fuel adjustment. What I had shown you in my report was that we were $1.50 in 2024. for the loading factor. Everything we discussed savings wise. Or sorry, I had $1.90 for 2024, just looking back at this report. And we dropped it to option 2, which was the $1.50 per ton loading factor. And 20 cents per ton kilometer, we bumped up to 22 cents per ton kilometer.
So,
Yes,
so we went up 10 cents on the loading factor and increased 2 cents on the kilometer.
correct.
So. It's not all that news.
The savings that I presented you from our budget and from what the change of rates would be still the same.
Right.
That information was correct. It is the report itself was touch misleading.
That made it look pretty drastic when we went from 190.
Yeah. So I wanted that to be brought here just to hat in hand.
I see Dan was looking at you, so you might have to clarify him.
Yeah, we can chat about that a little more. Then.
I have a question for Charles, just because we're on the topic of budget today. Do you know offhand, or could you find out, I guess, like what the difference is in cost for a contract grader compared to our in-house graders per kilometer? Like you can go per kilometer and then it would be fair, right? Just knowing the cost of graders nowadays,
Yeah,
like
I'm
wondering if there's
Per-
a savings to be done.
yeah, I can put something together for the next meeting.
That'd be good.
Because
Just.
I'm not that good, Brenda.
Your wizard skills.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to,
Yeah, no,
comment.
if you could. That would be good information to know.
Per kilometer might be a little tricky.
Okay,
It's
well,
not impossible,
however-
but per hour I could do.
Oh, okay.
That would be easiest for myself.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
There's gonna be a list of assumptions in this
That's right.
calculation that's about this long.
Yeah.
Assuming.
Yeah.
There's a lot of variables.
Which is fair, right? We have to do calculations like that all the time, but.
Yeah, I
Just kind
can,
of a broad.
A ballpark.
yeah, 100%. Cause yeah, it's not cheap owning a grader and running it.
And so I had a call from them, a rater in my ward, asking about. Is it okay if he mows ditches along his land? He's got like 80 quarters of land, and he said, you know what, he understands the county, you know, does a rotation, can't get to everything all at once, and so for, I guess, weed control, aesthetics, both. And then the other thing he mentioned is, he's got equipment of his own, and he sees that some ditches, the water's not moving. When he looked in there, there's gravel that the grader is winged in there, there's vegetation growth, and it's just impeding it. And he just scraped it out, not recontour the ditches, just kind of give it a quick cleaning. I said, well,
I'd rather not.
yeah, so I said, probably have that conversation with you, right? But I just, you know, give them the heads up that, and I guess that's gonna be a decision that you would have to bring to council if we start. I said the problem with that is you allow it one place, then everybody should be entitled to that, and not everybody plays by the rules, right? I mean, if you were to go in there and just scrape out some gravel and grass and put it on this edge of your property, mow the grass, I don't see that would be a problem, but it could potentially turn into one.
I mean, the mowing thing. The issue I see with that is damages. So if he hits a sign or destroys a culvert in. Well, now who's gonna pay for that? We're gonna have to pay.
Oh, so you want me to quit mowing my ditches?
Well, me
Yes.
too.
But it's the same with, like we talked about a few meetings back. Farmers using their tractors to plow roads. Well, that's all well and good, but now you've taken the ground out of it. Or you damaged the road, so now we've got to come, we've got to fix them. That's why, like, we'll open field accesses, for example. On request. But. I hesitate to allow anybody to do stuff within our road allowances that we don't have direct control over. Right, because if they damage something. How do I know it was Bob that was out there mowing the grass? I don't know that, right? It's a tricky one. And I mean, if we can bring decisions like that to council, but
Well, I think it's worth looking at, not just discarding it totally.
no, for sure.
I mean, if
That's
there's-
why I say I'm just hesitant to say yes or no.
I mean, I know from my observation, a lot of people do mow their grass, including me and Gloria. In front of the And, but I mean, there's, in my case, there's no signs, there's nothing, there's one water crossing sign that I diligently go around. And there's one approach into my place that I can't go anyway, because it's so deep, I go with the string turner and do it.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna crush a culvert with that.
Yeah.
So I mean,
But not everybody's as diligent as I.
no, but, yeah, so I guess just by painting the whole municipality with one brush is maybe there's room to look at that, right, how that can be handled. Is it a case by case, somebody comes in and asks for that permission and spell out the rules for them, that, you know, you knock over a sign, you crush a culvert, you take out somebody's window driving by, then you're liable for it.
Yeah.
But,
Because I mean, we see that here, like with culvert damage that I'll speak to is the contract mowers that we have every year. If they damage something, signs, culverts, whatever, then we keep some of that money from Holtback and use that to pay to fix those things. Whereas in this instance, we don't have anything,
Mhm.
right? Something that, and I'm by no means painting the whole municipality the same brush, but not everybody is as diligent. Some people go and start doing ditching themselves without talking to anybody, and then all of a sudden we end up with a huge erosion issue in a ditch and it's not, great.
And I don't disagree with you there, I mean, that's not what we want, that's not the intent of this.
Yeah.
This ratepayer said, no, he knows that, he's seen that people have done in the ditches where they, you know, run tractors down or kicking excavators and deep in ditches, and then all of a sudden you get huge erosion problems, and that's not what his intent is, but, I guess what he says to me and what actually happens could be two different things. We've got to put some trust into people's common sense, I guess, but, so yeah, just, you may be getting a call and.
Oh, for sure.
I mean,
And yeah, that's absolutely something I can bring back to you guys, because
Okay, anything else? You got a motion to accept the DPW report then? Councillor Thies, all in favor? Carried.
I will.
You got two more items, but I kind of missed it. We had a meeting scheduled for our planning commission, the 11th. It's 12 now. So let's just quickly, it's gonna take like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But we still have to go through it, all right?
ISL's not gonna join either.
No,
So,
I hope not.
yeah.
I'm sure they can, but. So let's just, regular meeting, we'll call to order our municipal commission meeting at, 11:57. Adoption of the agenda, get a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Reese, all in favor, carried. Adoption of the minutes from our previous meeting.
Also,
Okay, thank you, Linda, all in favor, carried. And we have one. 4.0A1, a development permit that's been issued. We just need to, how do we do that? There it is, Councillor Deck against that motion, all in favor, carried. And nothing under B or C, so like I said, this is a really quick meeting, adjourned at 11:38. All, well, I don't have to say all in favor.
At least the time's different this time.
Yeah, that's Okay, so now we can reconvene our regular meeting. And we can go back to page 2 of the agenda. 6.3.2, we have two items here. The first is road allowance lease, which you all have a chance to look at.
Yeah, so as per your policy here, we've accepted a road allowance lease application. I don't see any issues with it. So, pretty straightforward. If there's any questions, please feel free to ask.
Okay, so. Questions on this allowance lease? It's been advertised and I imagine letters have been circulated. Any adjournment? Landholders, if that was the case, but maybe he owns all the land around it.
Yeah, he owns it.
Yeah, so that's,
And it's just so that he can graze in between. What I'm assuming.
No issues, so I'll make this motion.
okay.
Approve this.
Okay, Councillor Reese, acknowledge receipt of the report and approve the lease. All in favor? Jury. It's on here again. Item B is the dust control report.
Give me 2 seconds, I just need this motion on this. So as I kind of alluded to last meeting, I was gonna bring this to you guys. This is the county sponsored calcium locations that you guys. I've done. So a couple of years.
So this is just a repeat of previous years.
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
No additions, no deletions.
Well, the only deletion would be Sunny Valley Road, because we are not hauling out of Sunny Valley this year.
And that's the biggest one.
However, that we are going to do 400 meters at Gillis Pit, because that's where we're hauling out of. From the highway, 400 meters to the west, or sorry, east, yeah. Just combat dust, with all the trucks coming in and out.
That's just the approach leading into the pit, like the road leading into.
Yeah,
the pit.
it's a short chunk of road, so it's not,
So Sunny Valley, even though the county's not hauling out of there, there'll still be a lot of private haul. Are we still gonna do intersections or?
so. No, because anybody who hauls out of Sunny Valley holds a Sunny Valley road use agreement. So they are required to do their own dust control to a certain point. Like if they're hauling 10 or more loads a day, they have to have a water truck out there to combat it. They get lucky every 2 years out of 3 that we're hauling out of there, so they don't have to do it.
So dust control on the whole length of the road or just by farm yards?
By farm areas.
Yeah, and intersections or?
So it's, they have to do it. Is that 10 trucks or 10 loads or more a day? Is there?
We've had,
How do we know that they're doing it?
compliance.
Yeah, so that's another thing that we're going to have to monitor fairly closely this year. Is.
I hope so.
Oh, yeah, and we will be. I know one of our staff lives right off the Sunny Valley Road, so they'll see vehicles driving by. But. From most companies are pretty good at letting us know when they're hauling. There are the off chance that they don't. And it's a simple phone call to that person. And they usually rectify it pretty quickly. So not too worried about it, but it is something we will be monitoring very closely.
Okay, that's good.
And that township road 924 going out to the satellite yard, we just do the first 100 meters coming up to the highway. Does Mercer or whoever is in charge of that yard, do they have to do dust control underneath, but they can just water it? They don't have to calcium it, I guess, or?
They could just water it, yeah, or if they do put in for calcium, we'll put it down.
It's, I think they've only ever just watered it in the past, right?
I think so.
And so we, at our repairs meeting, it was, remember the Main Street and North Star, or the main us the
Yeah.
truck fill or we haven't been doing that, or we're doing that?
No, so we did that last
Oh,
year.
you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
What my plans are, and I'll. Don't know how we're gonna go about this, but, so when we remove the. The rink, there is a bunch of millings that are been sitting there. Those need to be removed. And it would be beneficial to us to apply that around that area. Because millings don't produce dust. So, um. That is an option that. At that time, I will likely bring that to you guys. But it would be my recommendation, that's where we dispose of some of them. Just it being in town kind of makes sense. So, unless we want to pay for this. But that's expensive.
And did your contractor get re-tendered? Is it Tiger again, or they just?
I don't know yet, we're still waiting for.
Oh, it has been out to tender.
Yeah, it's out to tender. So if I was a betting man, I would say that, yes, it will be Tiger.
Yeah.
They're the ones that do the calcium in the area for all the surrounding municipalities, so. It'd be awful weird if somebody came in lower than that.
Right. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, Terry, I'm just checking on the Keg River Road. Hello.
Big River Road.
What do we mean by that?
So it says reduced in brackets.
And then various locations.
Yeah, so we don't do that anymore, Linda. We haven't since I've been here. I don't know where the various locations are. in Keg
Good.
River.
So I think the four-way stop by Michael Jack's right.
Let's- Really, there's not that much traffic anymore, right? Unless it's logging, and other than that, they look after it.
House plants are shut down out west there now.
I was just wondering when it said various locations. Yeah. Well, you'll be hearing from Michael, Chuck, I know that.
Page two there, Josh, where's the?
Sorry, page 2, say here, it's the south.
Oh, sorry, okay, so yeah, so just go to Keg River. So I don't understand that. Are we still doing 1,000 meters at various locations?
No,
No.
no,
Yeah, this list is all things you guys previously used to do, but we don't do anymore.
Yeah, all of them? We don't do any of them anymore?
no, these are the ones that we. Well, the council had decided not to do anymore.
Oh, so
I think it was the year before
I
I came.
misinterpreted. I thought.
Oh, I thought it's the one with.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, sorry, this is the list that you guys used to do.
So do we have the list that we do?
We don't do anything.
Oh, we don't do any.
Yeah, yeah, I could give you
Oh
one.
my
but-
God, so North Star then, I guess, I've seen the North Star here, so that's what I was asking.
Yeah, so that just came out of that ratepayer meeting.
That's right.
We had some budget left,
Okay,
we just
okay,
did that short little stint.
thank you.
So that main street, Highway 35 and Naughty Kewen, that does not get done anymore then?
No, anything that's on this list is not
Doesn't
good.
get done. So, but again, so the list that we do is none. And that's
Yeah.
the same in the south.
With the, yeah. Typically the exception of the Sunny Valley Road. Because that's where we're hauling gravel, so we have to do dust control for areas we're hauling gravel on.
So the stockpile road going out, and it goes to Richardson. You don't do that because
We're
you're
not doing that, we're not hauling gravel up there.
none.
No,
None
not a rock. Well, we may for. Small little things around the area, but it's not an active gravel haul.
Okay.
Stop.
I just know there was some concerns. With all the traffic going into Richardson's and now. Will Hawk Ag Services be using that same access?
Oh, it's the one for-
Yeah, these are one south. But. I guess we don't do, see what, blowback there is.
So, the Sulphur Lake Road, intersection of Highway 35. So if there's log hauling out of there, then they're the ones that are gonna be
They are supposed to,
paying
yes.
for it. Because I
So-
think that was an issue before.
Yeah, so. There have been in the past, and I don't know, because I don't have the list of who's all applied already yet, but. Oil companies, anywhere in front of houses that they are hauling by. They will pay to have dust control. Occasionally, I believe in the past, there's been some logging companies that will do it as well. And intersections, stuff like that. But that's they're held to the same thing that everybody else is. April 30th, get your application in or. Live without.
Well, I guess we should read them in.
Yeah,
I thought it was like, which one's really the one?
Yeah, like, and so this list is here for you for if there are areas that you guys want to see done.
Gotcha.
Just know it does come with a cost.
well, we just finished talking about. Reducing services if we're trying to balance this budget.
The Hamlet of North Star is one that I think, because that truck field is right in the middle of
Mhm.
North Star, or not, it's a little bit there.
That one's not a huge concern because nobody's really getting up past 30 on there anyway.
That's true.
That's what I found, I mean,
Yeah.
two things, there's no real speed there, because
Yes.
it's such a short distance,
Yeah.
and, but calcium actually carries over for a couple of years, right?
It does, yeah. So I would expect like even Sunny Valley Road to not be that bad. Dust wise, because it's received calcium the last 2 years.
No, you're right, like even mine, I applied for the game, but I don't think I needed to, but. When it gets warm and.
Yeah. And there's things too, like if somebody wants it just to be refreshed or recharged, we'll come along and we'll just soak it down and then pack it back in, but. That,
Next year.
yeah, that's one of those things that we kind of roll the dice if it's gonna. Be, it won't be as effective as the first application, but it will give you some control of it.
See the used oil.
Yeah.
No, Terry. Please don't say that.
Every time that happens, we get a phone call
Yeah.
to this office asking if they're allowed to be there.
Yes.
Okay, so any other questions on what we got that? So that's what we don't do now, what we do. Is we need a motion to acknowledge receipt of the best control report except for information.
I'll move.
Councilor Zinsky, all in favor? Larry,
Yes.
okay. Thank you, Charles. We can skip down to 6.6.2. Item A is the 2025 Northern Connections Expo Exhibitor Social. Who's our new, is this? Oh, Gloria, no, Brendan.
So 662, this is, we're signed up for the, town of Peace River, sort of the Peace River Trade Show. As it was formerly known, now it's also known as the Northern Connections Expo. So this is just advising council, they do this every year, I believe, but they do host exhibitor social. So it is from 9 to 10 on Friday evening, just at the Apex Center. They usually have signs showing you exactly where to go. We haven't attended previously, but for information or to you guys can just send them.
Yeah, that was
Send anybody. I can't
I'm
remember.
I might, depending on how things are going, we drive down just to see how it goes there, but I'm not, gonna have 2 years and I drive home, that's for sure, so. Okay, so we'll just accept this as information. I don't think we have to designate any counselors, if counselors are working in the booth. Or do they want you to be registered?
No, yeah.
Going to just give you 2 tickets.
Yeah. No, each exhibitor receives 2 free drink tickets, no cost to attend or non-attendees, so.
Okay, just need a motion to accept the information. Okay,
I will.
All in favor?
Yes, Linda.
Carried. And
Okay.
info package. Any comments coming out of it?
Yeah.
So you want to change?
The minutes of energy.
I don't know what I do.
Yeah, it's the open house, summary of the open house. Yeah, okay, yeah, here we go. Yeah, so the reality outside, the invitation was given to come in. Participants said no, but eventually they did come in to warm up and we welcomed them. Well, they're talking about the rally outside, wasn't a rally, it was a group of signs on trucks. And I was talking with people there outside. We're waiting for the doors to open and one of the reps came out and asked us, are you guys coming in? And we told them, of course we're coming in. Our tax money's paying for this. Wayne and Scott get $8.4 million from Trudeau. Of course we're coming in. So when the doors opened, everybody went in. So I don't know what they're talking about here. There was no group huddled outside freezing and had to come in later because of the cold. This is misinformation from a company that specializes in misinformation. So this needs to be corrected in the record here. Who prepared this? Is Energy Alberta give you this information to put in there?
It was, I guess they did it. It was a summary of their, of the open house, and that was kind of the words. I mean, Teresa does our secretariat work and she's only recording what she hears, right?
Well, this is false. You know, if they, everybody that was there went in when the doors opened. We were waiting outside for the doors to open. And then again, they came and asked if we were going in. Of course we're going in. So I don't know what they're talking about here. This, somebody made this up, apparently. Make it look like that, you know, people are huddled outside freezing, my God.
Well, if they attend our next meeting, which I have no idea if they will. Can point it out to them and see if they can correct that then. That's not what it was. I mean, this is their words, right? This is-
Yeah, well, it's not correct.
Any other comments on the info package?
Yeah, yeah, I didn't get to, that, Zoom meeting the other day at, with the municipal,
No, 50.
yeah. Was there anything more than what was said in at the front of this, info package?
I think Gerhard sent them,
Yeah,
sent us a
If,
link.
yeah, if you have WhatsApp, he's had a group
Yeah.
message in WhatsApp here.
They
missed out.
Yeah.
the summary.
So we can make sure that's forwarded to council, what his
Okay,
executive summary was, I guess you could call it. Like, you know what, I never read it either. I see Caitlin responded to it, said it, well, put her whatever, and I never read it either, so, because I missed it as well.
'cause they didn't really say too much at the, like on this, where in his letter, like, all it was is, that they were going to enforce it, and that was basically it, what I got out of it.
I think what we were kind of had our eye on was what they're gonna there's supposed to be some big changes coming to ICF, some
Yeah,
really. Didn't what I seen from a high level, didn't seem like much was changing really.
no, that's the part that so I was trying to.
Well,
No, there was
Just,
few things that.
pretty important ones.
Was there?
Capital cost sharing, the biggest one that jumped out, capital cost sharing through these. Can only happen if either both parties agree, or if the one contributing is involved in the planning and design phase. So that was a big change. And then I believe they actually. They had a whole list, they had like certain services that. They were laid that were mandatory, and then certain ones that were exempt again, unless both parties agreed to include them from an operations standpoint. Which is a lot different than what is in place.
And I think if it went to an arbitrator, the arbitrator can't.
The arbitrator can only deal with what's.
Deal with what's there, can't add and change and say this and that thing.
But if we agree to something. With roads.
Yes,
Sometimes.
but somebody asked,
Then
somebody asked
you can
that.
add them.
And I mean, another municipality.
So you're pretty much open to
Did
whatever.
not hear that question?
I didn't tune into it though.
Oh.
Yeah, someone that does
Yeah.
specifically.
Reeve, if I maybe have a comment there.
Oh,
You're back.
Well, I just turned back in, yes. So
Yeah, go
if you
ahead,
look at,
Eric.
if you look at the summary that I sent you guys from Alberta Munis, I think that's a very good summarizing of all the things that they included in this new bill. And I really think that the ones that's not part of the bill 50 or not part of this ICF mandatory ones, that would be an optional thing. And if we agree to it, and I do agree, we have to agree to some of it because we are using some of the facilities, but there's no arbitration or whatever that can be linked to that portion of it. So that's definitely a win for the rurals, I would think.
Yeah, well, that's welcome.
So I do recommend that you guys have a look at that summary. I think it's a very good summary of everything. And they also do the recommendations, what they think should maybe be made a little bit more in detail or not. So I encourage you guys to have a look at that one. Of all the ones I've seen, that's probably the most accurate one I've seen.
So RMA has what with one yet? Is something?
I think they did, so I'm pretty sure that's what I read. Unless it
Yeah.
was, Alberta meetings, not.
That's what Barry is referring to.
I think this one is a little bit more in depth than the one from RMA. Maybe the RMA was just the first stab at it, and the more detailed one will follow soon. Thank you. That's it.
I will, I have been practice just talking to people.
Oh. Okay, any further comments from the info package? Not need a motion to accept the information.
Okay.
Okay, Gary, all in favor? Gary? Open mic. Any questions?
Yes, there was this one. So the mill rates, were adjusted to meet the cash requirements for the successful appeal of the designated industrial property. Is that referring to, Mercer's assessment? We don't like to name the appellants. There's only one really big DIP assessment within our municipality. Yeah, yes. Right.
So I mean, since it's under appeal, I don't know that we really, if it should be named. But I mean, it is a public appeal, I guess, so. Can frame it however you want, but just, I mean, probably the correct way is just say there's a large industrial appeal outstanding,
Okay,
and that's what it's hinging on.
that make everyone happy.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
I mean, probably people can connect the dots, but if not, then at least it's not putting the name out there.
Sure, all right. Yeah, no, it's not us blaming them for it, it's just a problem that we currently have, right? So it can substantially swing our tax revenue. We haven't taken a position, we won't take a position, we just have to plan accordingly around it.
Because it is provincially assessed and out of our hands, right, as far as the assessment goes. I mean, we could change the bill rate, but we won't. We've done that today, we've already adjusted the bill rate, but the outcome of the appeal will have an impact one way or the other, right? Anything else?
Can I address a question, Councillor Reese?
Mhm.
I was just wondering, you said that there were several people at the expo that were talking about the nuclear power plant?
Yeah.
Do you have can you give an estimation? I think somebody already asked you that, but you weren't sure.
3 people come up to me specifically. I was there for 2 hours.
And they're from the area,
Yeah,
and their questions were all relatively, but was your perception of the plant negative or was it positive?
the perception of the process, they're not, they feel that
The process,
the public should be consulted by council.
not the plant itself, just the process.
Well, I think all of the above.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No.
Oh, that's good. Okay, well, we got one in camera item, so thanks for attending and. You want Charles in the room or not? No? Okay, perfect. Have a good day.
It's a motion.
See you later. I'll be in my office.
Well, there's this.
Okay, yeah,
One
one
you guys are natural reaction, so I had read this.
Can you send me just,
But it's just the figures that were proposed, they haven't arrived with that indication.
No, over the meetings did.
Well, I don't think I've seen that one either.
What was the difference? What's up? Figure out.
That's Alberta government, the one I gave you, it's from the Alberta government.
that's
The one that's there.
it was 94.
Yeah, I haven't,
I don't have.
Lori just gave it to me, like I did, your card texted you. So she said, does anyone else want a printed copy of that one?
Yes.
One that Gerhard texted? Yes. So agree, Ben, if you want a printed copy?